Okay, and welcome to everyone to the 114th meeting of 7th Council Municipality of South Dundas on February 28th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We did have a closed session at 5:45, which was opened and closed and done with. However, before we start into the agenda, we have a motion for suspension of procedural bylaw. Madam Clerk.
By Councillor Mellon, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas suspend Section 5.9.9.2 and 5.9.9.3 of the procedural bylaw on Monday, February 28th, 2022, to permit for the remote virtual participation of Councillor Wells.
Okay, is there any comments, questions, concerns on that? Go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. So in March 2020, we had a discussion surrounding this bylaw that every member of this council was part of. And I think that we need leaders that are present and recognize what the job entails. And I know when I signed up for this job, I ask anyone how difficult it is to book a site at a provincial park when you have limited dates. I've really tried not to miss meetings. I've tried to be present. And I think that because we had such a fulsome discussion at the beginning of the pandemic, and at that time we even discussed about how it would be in emergency situations, honestly, a vacation's not an emergency, it's a planned event. So I have some concerns, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, anything, Councillor Lewis?
Yes, in March of 2019, we all sat here. We had a very lengthy discussion.
It's 20.
Or 20, we had a very lengthy discussion. We all voted yes. A bylaw is a bylaw, and I'm not here to break bylaws, change bylaws. Here not very long ago, a bylaw came up on an issue, and we did not budge from it. And I think if you're not sick or in the hospital, you shouldn't be doing a WebEx. You were voted in a council position for a reason, for the people, and you should be present to address what the issues are. So I'm not happy neither, and that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Mellon?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. I was one of the ones that said, that if I'm sitting on a beach somewhere, and I was speaking from my own personal opinion, that I don't think I should be involved in a council meeting, and I still think that to a great degree, that if you're away on just a relaxation, pleasure holiday, I guess, if you will, yeah, I don't think you should be, probably taking part in a council meeting. And, personally myself, I probably wouldn't be able to add too much constructive, discussion to a meeting if you've been sitting around, relaxing and not, getting into the agenda and whatnot. Over the last, I guess, almost 2 years, a lot has changed. And it's been a very fluid, I guess, if you will, transition and getting into being allowed to have virtual meetings. And I know on South Nation there's some that are in present when we were back a few months ago when we were actually allowed to be in the chambers back at Finch, and there were some that didn't feel comfortable and they took part virtually. To me, I think we need to review this policy. For tonight, I would suspend the policy and allow Mr. Wells to take part in it. I think we need to review this policy and bring it back to the table and probably look at it. And, if a person is going to be away, other than for personal relaxation time, and that's where I come in, where I feel strongly about it, that, you would have to get pre-approval, I guess, if you will, to, take part in a council meeting or whatnot, whether a committee of whole or regular council meeting. So for tonight, Mayor Byvelds, I would support that we would suspend the procedural bylaw, I guess if you will, and allow this, but I think we need to bring this back, because a lot has changed in 2 years. And when we brought this in place almost 2 years ago in 2020, we really didn't know where it was going to be going. It was all new territory for everybody, that the province were allowing this to, to happen, and a lot of different municipalities and different organizations are doing that. Tonight is probably the first time we've had somewhat of a full complement of staff at our council meeting that have been taking part virtually. And, I think there's different circumstances now that we need to explore and probably address in a new and revised policy. But for tonight, I would suspend it. To me, it's, the more people we have take part in a discussion, that want to be part of the discussion and want to be part of the council meeting, I think it's better for, a decision by council. So tonight I would somewhat go back on what I said 2 years ago, but on the condition that we review this policy, I would say sooner than later, maybe in proposed committee of the whole meeting at the end of the month.
Okay. I did discuss with the Madam Clerk about having a review of the procedure bylaw, specifically this section. I will say that probably in the end, I don't think being on vacation somewhere else would qualify, and it wouldn't qualify tonight either. We are in a new world. COVID has allowed Zoom meetings and that to happen. I will admit, to have someone on the screen and working with the four of us, or doesn't matter, it's four of us, the combination thereof is challenging for the chair. I will tell you that right now. It's much easier when you're either all here or all there. However, I'm willing to work with whatever council decides in the end, but we will, as Councilor Mellon has alluded to, we will do a review of that section and see what this council wants to do going forward. However, tonight, that section is what we're looking at, either applying it or not applying it. That's council's choice, and that's the way the procedural bylaw does work. We do always have a chance to suspend bits and pieces of it as we feel free. However, I would always caution council on doing anything too major or silly within it, because that's our rules of procedure, and you really don't want to change them on the fly, and certainly not at every council meeting. Anything further from any member council? Deputy Mayor?
Sorry.
Apparently my mic wasn't on. I forgot to turn it on.
That happens.
Yeah, I am quite comfortable with, I'm okay if we bring it back for discussion, but in 2020, the being here and being present is vitally important. And I hate these discussions somewhat only because they provoke controversy. And we're in a situation now where people are really questioning political leaders and whether they're in it for the right reasons. And I think being physically present the majority of the time is vitally important to the process that we are all here to take part in. And when I ran, I knew what I signed up for. The last 3 years, I've shuffled things that I personally wanted to do and put this position ahead of those things. And I've done that with my family vacations as well. I try to only miss one council meeting, 2 max for family vacation. And as I was jokingly saying, but when you're restricted in what dates you can and cannot go, it makes it even trickier to plan things. So I knew, pandemic or not, I knew what I signed up for. And I am somebody who, as a public servant, or a former public servant with the province, all my co-team was in Toronto. So we did a lot of teleconferencing. You are 100% not as effective as when you're physically present. So I think I don't want a watered down version. Whether I'm sitting at this table or not, I'm still a resident of South Dundas, and I do not want a watered down version of council. So that's my 2 cents with my mic on. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Councilor Lewis?
No, I said my piece. Thanks, Mayor.
Anything further, Councilor Mellon?
No, I mean, I agree with the points that are being brought up here tonight. I just feel that, with the changes and everything that's going on the last 2 years, and, when we brought the policy in, yes, I supported it, and I still do to a great degree. I just, to bring another opinion into the discussion, to my mind, is not a bad thing, but I do agree with what I hear from other members of council, and, I agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. Over the years, I allowed myself to miss one council meeting a year. Unfortunately, with COVID, I haven't been able to get down south, so I don't think I've missed any this year. The last couple of years, which, well, anyways, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, it's unfortunate, but, I agree. I shuffle things around, and there's a body in my home that's sometimes not very happy with me, and but I do agree that I put maybe sometimes council ahead of family, but then there's other times when you can't do that, and you gotta try and at your very best try and make as many of the public engagement meetings that you need to do. But I'm good with what council is happy with or comfortable with tonight, but I'll still say that we could, in my opinion, we could have suspended for tonight, and with the condition that we review it ASAP, and try and clarify what we would allow, and I think we need to do anyways. However we vote tonight, we need to bring that policy back and clarify it a little bit. If we want to change it or leave it as is, but that's all, Mayor Bylaws.
Okay, then I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion? Those opposed? Motion's defeated. So I'll send him a little, I promised him a text. I will send him that. With that, we'll move on. Confirmation of agenda. Are any additions, deletions, or amendments tonight, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, items 9B and C from consent are being moved to discussion, and we have an addition of item 10H as KIR for the COVID policy update.
Okay, any additions from any members of councils tonight? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to give an update on the Iroquois Cenotaph funding that was just announced today. Sometime, it'll be quick and short and painless, I promise.
I will hold you to that.
Okay,
Councilor
Mayor
Mellon.
Bylaws.
Okay, so that's after H. Will become I. Anything else? Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof this evening? Seeing none, the adoption of minutes for February 14th regular meeting, please.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the minutes of the 100th and 13th regular and in-camera meetings of council be adopted as circulated.
Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. On delegations tonight, we have two. First one is from Chloe Lavoie from Watersheds Canada with the overview of the erosion prevention project program at the Morrisburg waterfront. So Chloe, welcome to South Dundas Council meeting tonight.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. I'm just going to quickly share my screen.
You are not loud enough for some reason. Just hang on. It might be our end.
Okay.
Our technical advisor's coming.
Thanks.
Talk, Chloe, can you talk now?
Can you hear me now? I'm just working to share my screen.
Yeah,
Is that better?
that's good. Perfect.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Perfect. So thank you so much for having me tonight. I thought I would just give a little bit of an overview about my organization as well, because we're fairly new to working in this area. We just started working out towards Cornwall, all along the St. Lawrence as well. So I just wanted to start with a bit about who we are. So my name's Chloe Lajoie. I'm from Watersheds Canada, and I'm our Natural Edge Program Manager. So Watersheds Canada is a national Canadian charity, and we're working with local communities and landowners to restore and protect Canada's freshwater. We're actually based out of Perth, and we deliver our programs throughout Eastern Ontario, but we also share our programs with other environmental organizations all across the country so that they can deliver it in their own community. One of our largest programs is the Natural Edge, and it's a shoreline restoration program where we work with landowners to create a natural shoreline by planting native trees, shrubs, and wildflowers that are suitable for their property. And we work to restore these shorelines because native plants provide so many benefits to the environment. First off, it really helps with erosion control. So plants really help to stabilize shorelines as the roots grow into the ground and secure that soil. And even at the Morrisburg Waterfront Park, which is the project we're going to discuss, they have actual riprap in place. But over time, riprap can kind of break down as waves come up and hit it, and that wave impact can kind of shift those rocks, causing them to fall. So if we establish a native plant buffer up along the top of the rocks, then that just further secures the soil in the future. And then as these wildflowers and these shrubs continue to seed and spread, if it spreads down into the rock as well, not only will it secure that soil underneath, but help to anchor those rocks for the future. It also helps to slow and reduce runoff, so filtering out any excess nutrients that's coming from land runoff and flowing into the water, therefore improving and protecting water quality along the river. And then also it creates habitat for local wildlife. And then usually an issue with parks is a lot of Canadian geese or Canada geese that come up. So a native plant vegetation buffer also helps to deter those geese, because if they can't see what's above them, then they're less likely to actually come on land. We're just focusing on a smaller section of the park, so it won't stop all the geese, but you might see a difference over time that geese are less likely to come where we've established this buffer. So as you know, we started this process last summer. We met on site with representatives from the Morrisburg Waterfront Committee, as well as with the township. And there we were discussing the project, determining where we would actually like to do the planting. I was trying to figure out the sight lines and to figure out the height of the plants that we wanted to go with, as well as any future projects that you had in the park that would be kind of affecting these plants or affecting the area you're doing it. So taking all of that information that I gained, we designed a plan, and you have a copy of that plan as well that I'll go over. So we've customized it based on that conversation that I had with the committee members and the township. And so our next step would be to actually schedule the volunteer planting day, because we want to use this project as an opportunity to show the community what they can do on their own properties. And our goal is always to create a shoreline that is environmentally beneficial, but also very functional for those that are using it. So that's why we took all that information into consideration when designing the plan. So you guys all have the plan, and looking it over, you can see that we've chosen mainly short flowering shrubs and wildflowers to plant along the majority of this restoration area, or the area to naturalize. And the tallest plants will get grouped together so as not to create more of a hedge. If they're grouped, then people can still look around them. But even then, most of our plants are only about a meter tall, and a lot of those are wildflowers, so it's not going to be like a dense hedge all along the waterfront blocking those views. The plants will get slightly taller in compartments E to H, and that's just to help transition our new plantings into the existing plants that are already there. Because I believe there was already a planting that had taken place that had a lot of dogwoods and 9-barks there. So those are a bit taller than the plants that I've selected. So if we kind of transition that height using these smooth rows, then I think it'll look really good and natural going from our new planted area to the one that's already existing. And then you can see here that our planting compartment outlined in white is a bit set in from where the actual pathway is. And this just leaves room for the plants to grow. But I was also told that there might be some updates or improvements done to the pathway. So we're leaving some room so that the plants kind of won't impede that, and the plants won't be affected if you come in later on to improve that pathway. Oh, and I just also wanted to note that we can adjust the species or their placement if there's somewhere, if you think they're too tall, we can move those before the planting starts, no problem. And then one of our taller plants was sweet oxeye, which is a wildflower, and I can't actually source that from our nurseries this year. So I'm just going to be replacing those with some of the shorter wildflowers. So in regards to maintenance, usually we place these hemp fiber mats around each plant, and this just helps to control the competition grasses, as well as help to retain moisture after rainfalls, so that this will hopefully create as little maintenance needed as possible. Usually I always do just the square fiber mats on the left, but I'm actually able to source hemp blankets. So if you would want, like, we can purchase these instead, and it would cover the entire planting area that we would secure to the ground with metal ground staples. And then we'll be cutting into that blanket to plant within it. So then this just really helps to stop those grasses coming up in between all of those plants. This blanket lasts about 2 to 3 years before it just degrades naturally on its own. And then that just allows the plants to get to a size where they can outcompete the grasses and start to spread out on their own. It is, when I spoke with the waterfront committee, we also spoke about them maybe coming in and doing some volunteer time to weed out any weeds that have started, or placing more mulch down in the future. But like, this blanket lasts for a couple of years, so I think it's better than going with just a cedar mulch instead. And I just wanted to give an example. So this is a demonstration site that we did up on the Madawaska River back in 2016. So it was basically just a mowed lawn right to the water, and they suffered from some flooding each spring. And then this is what it looks like just 4 years after planting. So all of the wildflowers have spread along, and they've just let that to come up naturally as it is. So it would be a similar effect for this project as well. But with this one didn't use an erosion or a weed suppressant blanket. So I think it would take just a little bit longer for your project to get to this size, because it'll only start spreading once that weed control blanket has degraded. So I guess I'll open it up to any questions about species or placement or anything like that.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. I'll move it over to the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I sit on the Morseburg Waterfront Committee, but I was actually on vacation whenever you presented. Thank you, Chloe, for your presentation. Big fan in the naturalization process, especially with the pollinators, etc. However, our waterfront is a beloved space in South Dundas with high usage, like high public usage. So I think the project's fabulous, but I'm just kind of, if I look in my crystal ball, I'm seeing where there will have to be some sort of education plan put into place to explain why we're doing it, what the benefits are, and even so far as to point out some of the pollinators that would probably go to those plants. So I'm just wondering, is that something that the municipality would do, or would your Watersheds Canada assist us in coming up with the proper language and signage and stuff?
We can definitely assist you with that. That's something that I spoke with with Michael and Rosemary at the Waterfront Committee, is they were going to be doing all the advertising to bring out the volunteers for this planting day, for this workshop. So that's the first way that we'll start educating the public about it. If you wanted to do any signage, then we can of course help with getting the proper language for that as well. That's not a problem.
Yeah, because I mean, in some of the spots that you've outlined, you are changing access to the water, especially if it becomes quite dense. So I think advertising the benefits of the goose buffer and the shoreline erosion, I think that will have an impact, especially if we do it properly. The other thing is we have a water level issue here. So it's not just the waves, it's also the rising, falling of the water level. So I'm assuming this would have kind of the same benefit all the way around.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. So this will still help to secure that soil with the water rising and dropping. And the plants chosen are pretty hardy and tolerable of droughts and a bit of flooding as well. I did select more flood tolerant plants for kind of on the edges of the beach access. So they'll be fine with the changing water levels.
Okay. So, I mean, those were just my concerns. I think it's a great project, but I think having the community back it will be not a challenge, but I think they'll understand the reasonings behind it. But I think initially when people would walk by and with the natural flowers, sometimes they look more like weeds until they bloom. And that will be an interesting thing for our staff to navigate, right? Because they're going to get phone calls about all of a sudden where we've always heavily cut and trim, we're not doing that anymore. So I think it's a fabulous idea. I just, for me, I really think especially sitting in this seat, having an education plan will be key. And having something that's permanently describes why we're doing what we're doing is definitely going to be something that is going to be necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis.
I have no questions. I thank you for the little speech you did. I'm not really a flower man, but I guess I don't know if it's a man's thing or not, but it'll be nice to see. I know we plant wildflowers every year in our backyard, and they are beautiful whenever they do come up. But thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, I mean, in principle, I like the idea. I mean, it offers the pollinators a place to be and whatnot. I just got some reservations about, you look at some of the areas that they're looking at, like we have the large stone riprap to protect, a lot of the erosion, which I think, we need on a fast flowing river like the St. Lawrence. Like we have brushes, bush and stuff that, I'm just not sure how it would blend in. And something like Deputy Mayor Gardner, like unless, to me, in my mind, until this gets established, we're going to have to almost rope this off because these young plants will get trampled. I got some questions about that, how we, and then going down the future, your maps you said you would alluded to, would be protect them for, hold back the weeds or suppress the natural grasses, but for a couple years. But then after that, I think we need to know who's going to be looking after this. It's going to be volunteer groups, or it's going to be township staff, or and what's going to be involved in that, and whether we replant and how much this is going to cost. I believe we're responsible for 25%. I think in the agreement I saw. If I can come up with it again. But I got, yes, it would look beautiful to get it established, overnight, but that doesn't happen. And I think once it would be established, then I think, the public would realize and probably stay out of it, but then it's going to be those first year or two, I think, that, it's going to be an issue as far as that goes, and what our contribution would be towards this, or is this under the waterfront, I guess, budget? I'm not sure. More for waterfront, it is okay. They've already included that in their budget. Okay. I wasn't sure where the money was gonna, so. I think
Yes.
it's a worthwhile project. I think we need to refine a few points as far as my thinking. But thank you very much for the presentation, and I think it would actually, enhance, once it's up and going, I think it would enhance the waterfront and make it look a lot better than just weeds or brush or, anyway, that's, okay, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So I will say this, Chloe, after reading the report, and I was a little hesitant because I didn't know, the whole details of it, not being part of the committee, and no disrespect to anybody here on council or the committee itself, but I'm rather enthusiastic about the program. I think it's something that changes that waterfront somewhat. It's been like that for 60 years or whatever long it is, 50 years. Having some nice flowers on the side instead of just looking at rock, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's, it's not like it's the whole thing's blocked off. There will be sections of nothing every once in a while. So I think if it's done right, I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like in the end. And I know it's going to be some work, whether it's staff or volunteers, but, we have some good volunteers in Morrisburg to get that started. And once it's started, it's basically on its own. So, and I know there has been mention at the Iroquois Waterfront Committee, which I am council rep, that they might look at this kind of program too. So if you're interested, I can certainly pass on your contact info and see if that's what they want to do. They have a lot of projects set for this year, but they also are not happy with what's happening at the edges, and which is mainly more brush than anything else. And they have already talked about putting a wildflower or pollinator type, excuse me, patch within the grass field there, and it's totally different park, so and that's okay. But I see a lot of benefits in this, to be honest. I think it's got to be done right. Yes, I don't disagree. There's always questions that council would have, but in the end, I think there's some fine detail that staff will have to work on when they bring that bring a report to council on the signed document, but I don't see any issue from my point of view. Anything further from any member of council? Okay, with that, Chloe, and sorry for butchering your last name. It's I tend to do that once in a while, so now that I'm fixed up. We do thank you for your presentation, and we'll work with the committee and staff to come up with the document, see if we need to sign it. If there's any other further questions of the council at that time, then we'll go from there.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, just getting to where I need to get to, sorry. Okay. So next delegation is here in Clegwith from Keystone Bridge Management with our biggest project of the year in South Dundas, Taylor Road Bridge, and an update for council. So Harold, welcome to South Dundas Council again.
Thank you, Mayor Barvelt, and good evening, Council. And I'm not sure whether somebody will be presenting my notes, or whether I need to share my screen. I'm not clear on that.
Would you like him to share his screen? Okay, share screen, please, Harold. We got your notes, but we don't have, the audience won't be able to see it.
Okay. Is that clear to everybody?
Yep.
Then very quickly, I just want to bring council up to date in terms of where the design is at. Last time we addressed this particular project, there were a few things in the air, and the guidance from council really was very, very helpful in terms of bringing the design to where I'm presenting it now. Last we spoke, we weren't clear on the foundation investigation results. And we've since found out that we can build a bridge on spread footings. so we do not have to absorb the cost of putting in a piled foundation. That will save about $100,000 in the value of the project. And based on that, and considering that the previous option, which was like a short 10-foot span, an 80-foot middle span, and a 10-foot short span, that can only be constructed on piles to make it work. And so the decision has been made more or less on my own, but respecting the fact that the council is looking for the best possible value. And so the best possible value now is a 90-foot span on spread footings. The other consideration that we spoke about was the width of the bridge. And in looking into it a little bit more, both the 3.6 meter wide bridge and the 4.2 meter wide bridge only require a transom depth of, require a shallower transom depth. If we go to a 5.4 meter width, then we need to increase the depth of the bridge by 8 inches, which means we need to raise the grade of the road by another 8 inches. And this has attendant costs that really can't be justified under the circumstances. And so we're proceeding on the basis of a compromised 4.2 meter wide bridge, which I think, if I interpreted council previously, was sort of an appropriate compromise for this particular bridge. It's not as wide as the existing bridge, but it will certainly be a better and less intimidating to cross at 4.2 meters than it would be if it was a 3.6 meter wide bridge. So something that we haven't really discussed meaningfully, but the existing road alignment and bridge is not centered in the right-of-way. The right-of-way is only 40 feet wide on the north side of the bridge, and on the south side of the bridge, on the west side, the right-of-way is only 20 feet to road center line, to theoretical road center line. And so our design centers the bridge on the alignment, and that means that we'll need to shift the road alignment by up to 4 feet, 1.25 meters on the on the north side of the bridge, and a maximum of about 0.88 meters, just under 3 feet on the south side of the bridge. And the drawing shows to scale the proposed center line shift. And that's the design that we're working towards. This shows a cross-section on the north side of the bridge, and at the location of the maximum shift of the center line. And what it allows us to do is to minimize the impact on the property outside of the right-of-way. We will need to have some shallow ditches, and the back slopes of those shallow ditches will extend just beyond the right-of-way by a very small amount. And I would expect that the neighbors will view this favorably. It's really the best we can do in a very narrow 40-foot right-of-way. And I fully expect that this will be palatable to the adjacent landowners. The road alignment is shown here. It's exaggerated at a 10-to-1 scale. But what we're proposing is that the road continues to dip slightly at about a 0.14% degrade to the bridge, and then at the bridge it'll fall at about 0.5%, so half a foot in 100 feet across the bridge, and to a slight sag at the north end of the bridge, and then it'll rejoin existing. And we're looking at a maximum of about a foot, 0.3 meters of leveling of the road, so that we have a smooth approach to the bridge, a smooth approach off the bridge, and a reasonable ride for the public. So any project such as this, where we're putting in new infrastructure, it behooves everybody to upgrade the road standards to some sort of an acceptable current standard. And so that's what we've done here. We've tried to keep the cost down as low as possible and provide for approach grades that represent a safe and smooth riding a surface. This is what the proposed new bridge will look like, looking at it from upstream or downstream. We're, as discussed previously, and I think we have the consent of council, that an acro panel bridge such as this is a very appropriate design choice. And this shows the spread footings and the abutments to scale and the bridge to scale. The high water level is just below the bottom of the bridge at elevation 72.00. This provides about a foot of clearance to the underside of the bridge under the 25-year return period flood. And then the normal fall low water level at elevation 70.3 is also depicted on this drawing. What's important is, with respect to the low water level, is the foundations have been designed so there'll be no expensive dewatering. The contractor should be able to excavate and construct the footings completely in the dry under normal summer conditions. And so again, this will add to the economy of the project. I was asked by staff to address the, I was asked by staff to address two things to council. One of them are the heritage considerations and also the potential of pre-purchasing the bridge ahead of the main contract to replace the bridge. So with respect to heritage considerations, we've already enlisted a sub-consultant by the name of Wendy Shearer, who hails from Guelph, and she does a lot of work like this. She did a project that I was familiar with a few years ago in the township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands, and her work was very, very helpful then. And the requirement to provide a heritage assessment or cultural heritage assessment is not something that that I have any control over, and really council has no control over it either. It is clearly required by the government of Ontario, and this is explained in Wendy Shearer's report. There are various qualifying criteria that dictate when a heritage assessment should be invoked. And it's the age of the bridge, it's the cultural amenities of the bridge. And the Taylor Bridge in this case, it qualifies for all three screening criteria. The report that Wendy prepared is actually very, very helpful. It endorses the design approach that we're taking on the project. The requirements in terms of satisfying the Heritage Act, or the Heritage, not Act, but the Heritage requirements is not that onerous. She's recommending that a few discrete samples of the bridge be retained and possibly put on public display with a small plaque that acknowledges the loss of heritage by removal of the bridge, but it provides a nod to the fact that the bridge was there. And I'll just, these are effectively the summary remarks. These are some suggestions by Wendy in terms of what might be retained from the existing bridge and possibly incorporated into some sort of a small heritage plaque that acknowledges the bridge. And so these are just a couple of suggested representative features. Now, what's also recommended is that the engineering characteristics of the bridge are retained for posterity. That work has already been done by ourselves and also by a previous consultant to a reasonable degree. And so perhaps some additional photography of the bridge may be helpful as well from the point of view of keeping a permanent record of what was there. But again, like I know it's approximately a $10,000 cost to have done this heritage assessment, but we really have no choice in the matter. And I strongly endorse the need for this, and I'm very, very happy with the outcome of the report. And I really think that, in all fairness to everybody, if the report is read in its entirety, and it has been shared with the municipality, I think that hopefully you will come to the same conclusion as myself, that it was an appropriate exercise that needed to be done, and it really does set the stage for now finalizing the design of this particular project. The other thing that I was asked to address is some pre-purchase considerations. So I have 2 slides on this. It's been suggested by one of the suppliers, that would be by Acro, sorry, that we should consider pre-purchasing the bridge. So this is the supplier, one of the suppliers that I've been dealing with. I've been dealing with 2 suppliers. In fact, Acro's been very, very helpful, but certainly the representative for the Maybe Bridge Company has also been helpful. With pre-purchasing the bridge, there are a couple of things that are on the plus column. We have price certainty. The supplier is going to give more favorable client status to municipalities such as South Dundas than they would with perhaps a contractor that they may not have the same credit rating, for example, as South Dundas would have. A contractor, if they purchased a bridge, they of course will need to mark it up, so protect themselves, and it's only normal for them to have some sort of a markup on the bridge, and each contractor is going to have a different markup depending on what they think is appropriate and to cover their own risks associated with purchasing and taking delivery of the bridge. And so council would save the cost of contractor markup by buying it ahead of time. The other thing that is, again, on the plus side of the ledger is you'd have an assured delivery date if the bridge was ordered ahead of time. And if the council or municipality does pre-order the bridge, then it's up on the municipality to make sure that the bridge is delivered with appropriate timing to the contractor that has to install it. And the municipality may end up having to temporarily store the bridge and the bridge components. So this is something that needs to be understood and potentially grappled with. Last slide. Again, bridges of this type, there are only 2 suppliers, Acro, which is an American supplier, and Maybe Bridge, which is out of England. However, a big caveat here, Acro has actually purchased the Maybe Bridge Company. So there are 2 different products. They're very, very similar, but it's really, really hard to gauge whether, in fact, there is any competitive edge by, say, putting out the public tender and saying, okay, Maybe give us your best choice, best price, Acro give us your best price, and see what happens. I'm just not sure how that would play out. The design, we've been working with Acro, they've been the most forthcoming in terms of help. And they have a lot of good information, and we have a number of examples of Acro panel installations. And so the present design is premised on an Acro panel bridge, but it's no big hardship and would not be the design modifications would be rather modest if, for example, maybe Bridge became the preferred supplier. I would suggest that if there was a plan to pre-purchase, I would recommend to council that both Acro Panel and maybe Bridge be approached to give their best price based on a set of specifications that I would develop for the pre-purchase, and it would be effectively a double single 90-foot span bridge with a steel deck that can support an average of about 70 millimeters of asphalt and a few other wrinkles like that. And they could both offer a price and design details, and then, you know, it would be up to the council to accept what is considered to be the most advantageous offer of a bridge. Last point in all of this is pre-purchase. In my view, and I don't have a whole lot of experience, but I would suggest that the maximum advantage to the municipality of South Dundas would be of the order of about $20,000 savings. So about 1 or 2% of the project value overall that could be realized by pre-purchasing the bridge at this time. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you, Harold. I'm especially thankful that you brought council up to speed on why the Heritage Report had to be done. I know that there's a certain councillor to my left right now that was very excited about it, and he's still a bit fuming, I think, over here, but he's going to save his remarks. Now he knows, no choice. We will save what we have to do of the bridge, and we'll go from there. So with that, Councilor Mellon, any comments, questions, concerns? And now you know about the heritage, so you don't have to pontificate on that. Just let it go. Just let it go. Let it go. It's not Harold's fault.
Yeah, no, thank you, Harold, and I'm not blaming you. I was just wondering how we went from deciding whether we wanted to get rid of the bridge now ourselves, and then all of a sudden we found ourselves in this heritage thing. But if the province and their infinite wisdom thinks is, you know, this is a requirement that we have to do, we have to do it. Yeah, you know, I can live with everything you've got in your report. I would have liked to see a little wider bridge, Harold, but a 4.2 I can live with. You know, the competition as far as the bridge, you know, I haven't got a problem with pre-ordering the bridge, I guess if you will, but we're going to be sole sourcing basically. And that always stirs me up a little bit. But you're saying there really isn't any other, it's sort of a one pony show here right now as far as these bridges go in our area, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I can live with, I guess, you know, us going ahead. My question, I guess, to you, Harold, if we do this heritage study and where this all started, and I guess maybe initiative, I ask, you know, is it better for us to take the bridge out now? But now we got into this heritage study, I can see that that's not going to be done because we have to have that done by the middle of March. We only got 2 weeks to get the bridge out of there, otherwise we can't touch it till the 1st of July. So that's not going to happen because we got another level of bureaucracy involved in this with the heritage and the minister. Am I anywhere near the ballpark?
There was an opportunity this past month possibly to take advantage of winter conditions and ice. I don't think that it would be prudent at this point with spring around the corner and breakup coming very, very quickly, that there will be any advantage to trying to work from the ice to remove the bridge. Maybe somebody has somebody up there, you know, that's willing to do it very economically and at least lift the bridge out of place and save a few pieces. There's no real impediment to removing the bridge. But I'm not so sure that there's an advantage at this point either.
Yeah, and right now, like, let's face it, we got less than 2 weeks to get the bridge out of there. You know, you'll probably go out and find a contractor that would, oh yeah, I can get her out of there, but we're going to pay a premium for that. So, if we go ahead with the heritage study, how long, you know, we got to go ahead with it?
It's already done.
It's already done. It's already done? Okay.
It's done, yes. All we have to do is get the torch out and cut some pieces out and we're all good.
When can we, is it better for us to take the bridge out, because it was sort of conveyed to council that we could wrap that up in the contract? Would it be, I'm just thinking, I don't want to see a third, another body involved in this, If we take the bridge out, is it better for us to do, just say, we hire a contractor, we slap the bridge out of there, or is it better for us, as it was sort of put in the report from before, that we wrap that all up in one contract? Removal of the bridge plus putting in the new bridge. In your
What I would
opinion,
say-
which way is the best way? Because I'm just a little leery on putting it all together.
What I could suggest is the general contractor that's going to put in a new bridge will have to mobilize a significant crane to install the new bridge, assemble it and install it. And that same crane, depending on the crane supplier, would probably be very, very suitable for removing the existing bridge and support the removal of the existing bridge. I would suggest that there's no strong advantage to removing the bridge right now, particularly because we've lost the advantage of winter conditions and a contractor working off an ice platform. So I would suggest that it'll be cleaner and simpler just to have the replacement contractor remove the existing bridge and do anything and everything.
Okay. Yeah. We'll drive on then. When can this be ready to go out to tender? Well, or, pre-order, can we pre-order? It won't be going out to tender, we'll be just pre-ordering the bridge. Have you got the engine, like the documents ready to, send to the company? Like how long?
We're ready to pre-order the bridge at this point. We could write a specification, and I would suggest that the municipality of South Dundas directly approaches the two vendors, both Acropanel and maybe Bridge, and to give them 2 weeks to furnish a quote. And then we have some certainty that way. So that could happen in the next 2 weeks. With respect to the design, the drawings are about 80% complete at this stage, and the specification writing will be starting next week. The contractor can't start until after the 1st of July at the earliest. I'm recommending that the job be tendered in June sometime, with the idea that a contractor mobilizes on site in August and takes advantage of late summer, fall water conditions. And it'll go very, very quick if the bridge is pre-purchased. I would suggest that within about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, South Dundas will be looking at a new bridge. So construction, August, September into possibly Thanksgiving will be a very, very suitable time to do the work.
Okay. There's not going to be any more surprises from the Heritage, anything like, we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed. Like, that one threw me. I'll be honest with you, Harold, and that one just threw me. And I reached out to some of the local people there, and that bridge has been there as long as, and I think Mayor Byveld, you said it too, the bridge is falling in, now we got to have it. I won't go down the Heritage. I'm going to let that go.
You need to let it go, okay?
But,
it's not his fault.
Yeah, I know.
You
it's
need
not
the
your fault,
rant,
Harold.
then
It's
you
just,
maybe I'll direct you to the Minister of Heritage, and then you can
Is this going
let
to
him or
cost
her.
us any more, Harold?
It's $10,000.
I would suggest,
$10,000.
I would suggest Well, the heritage report was $10,000, but in terms of, something suitable that commemorates the bridge, we need to budget something towards that. It doesn't necessarily have to be immediate, but as long as there's some sort of a commitment and some sort of a plan around that satisfies the heritage considerations, it could happen in 2023, perhaps a little dedication ceremony when the bridge is finished. It's something that as long as the commitment is there to do that, that's the important thing. And so if there's a little sign and a plaque and a couple of pieces of the bridge on a suitable concrete pedestal on the side of the right of way, as long as that's done, say by middle of 2023, I think everybody will be happy.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off, Councilor Mellon. I see you're still steaming over there and like to get this meeting over done with. Councilor Lewis.
I only have one question, Harold. If we wait until June to put the tender out, don't you believe that that's a little late in the year? Should we not get the tender out earlier? So all the contractors out there, because most contractors know exactly what they're doing through the year. I think if we wait until June, it's really going to jack the price up on this particular job site.
Fair comment. It's a very small job for any general contractor. It'll be a lot of subs, I would expect. And so I'm not too concerned in terms of capability of a contractor, but in terms of attracting the best prices, earlier is better. I would suggest that, I'm working very, very hard to have something ready for tender by the end of March. And I think it is completely doable to advertise this by the end of March or very, very early April, and close it by May, and still attract, I think, very, very good prices.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we should go ahead and put it out early and put on there starting date July 1st or 2nd, whatever. But I think if we wait until June, I honestly think that's going to add more dollars that's not really necessary. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. My questions and concerns have been addressed.
Okay, so Harold, excellent update. I think we all needed to hear that from you. It's, as I said, it's our biggest project of the year, and we tend to be a little hands-on, and that's not a bad thing at times, but sometimes we get in the weeds, and no disrespect to Councilor Mellon, because I got just as excited as he did over the heritage thing till now I know it's no choice of yours or ours. So question on from a design point of view, you have the high water level projected at just 1 foot underneath the bridge on a 25-year storm, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, if we get the 50 or 100-year storm, one thing going for that, for the bridge itself and the stream, is that it's not a high flow stream. If it floods, it just tends to pond and then eventually go back down. Do you see any issues with if we get, if it starts to get beyond the elevation of the bridge? I know it'll be over the road then too, but.
Actually, the 100-year storm is projected to still be below the bottom of the bridge. It'll be very, very close, but it'll still be below the bottom of the bridge. So it would only be potentially a catastrophic, like 500-year storm, something that would be like supernatural, shall we say, that might wet the bottom of the bridge. But I've been very conservative with the hydraulic design, and I'm very, very comfortable with the bridge passing the 25-year storm with at least a foot of clearance, and possibly somewhat more, depending on just how much faith you have in the models that are used. But even the 100-year storm is projected to pass very safely underneath the bridge without touching the bottom cords.
Okay, so this bridge is somewhat higher than the current bridge then, or same elevation underneath?
it'll be exactly the same elevation underneath.
Okay, because my discussion with the neighbors is it gets to there and that's it. So, okay, so we're good. I guess worst comes to worst, we can put the grader on top of it to hold her down. People do that, don't laugh, it does happen. On the pre-purchase, and I'll ask our CEO and yourself this, do you need direction from council tonight or 2 weeks from now, direction early enough?
I would suggest that 2 weeks from now is plenty of time. I mean, if you can just let staff know that their council's good with it tonight, I can prepare the necessary specifications and have them ready towards the end of this week, and then staff can just approach the two suppliers directly and say, okay, give us your best price, and then maybe in 2 weeks, council will be accepting the price as opposed to issuing the go-ahead.
Okay, CEO or Jeff?
Absolutely, I think makes sense is that if council's okay, we'll go out and we'll get the pricing from the two suppliers, and then we'll bring a report back for council ultimately to accept the lowest bid or the best bid at that time.
Okay, so you want that tonight?
I don't think we need any direction. I think we got enough
Well,
direction.
you're getting
from
direction.
or
We're
give us
not just
a
letting you go
resolution.
by a bridge. You may end up coming out of your own pocket because council hasn't
Oh,
made
no,
that
no,
direction.
it's definitely coming
Sorry.
back to council though for approval for
No,
report.
well,
yes.
do you want a resolution
Sure,
to go ahead and
absolutely.
pre-purchase?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's
Yes.
suitable, so,
Agreed.
okay. We can add that when Madam Clerk gets it all ready and
And then we'll
on the
look,
fly.
and then we'll look at hopefully bringing it back roughly, hopefully the March 28th meeting if we can, or the first meeting in April. We'll try and target the March 28th meeting for council.
Yeah, if we go ahead tonight,
Yeah.
yeah, I think then you have time. You're only two suppliers. It's-
Correct.
and
Yeah.
If Harold says he can have the specs ready by the end of the week, then
Yep,
we'll
get that in.
leave it in your hands, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, anything further from any members of council? Questions, comments, concerns? I'll let you speak, Council Mellon, not inherit you, so.
No, it is what it is. I just gotta learn to take a breath and let the process work its way through. The only thing, and the pre-purchase considerations, Harold, you said maximum anticipated savings with pre-purchase is 20,000, but could be substantially less. Like, can you clarify that? Like, I mean, we could save 20,000, but we could save substantially less, like, or, that's a big gray area.
Yeah, what I'm estimating is that the contractor markup on the material alone would be of the order of maximum of about 10%. Might only be 5%, depending on just how competitive the contractor wants to be. And the other thing that's really, really hard to gauge is whether the suppliers will look more favorably upon selling directly to a municipality as opposed to a contractor. There's certainly less risk. I'm thinking that, $20,000 is about the maximum savings that could be realized, and it's an attractive saving. What colors everything is the fact that I can't really assure council that there is true competition between Acro and Maybe. I can't give them that assurance. When one company owns the other, we both know that the idea of competition is certainly greatly diminished. Even though they say there's competition, I can't in good faith tell council that truly there is competition. All we can do is put it out there, see which supplier is going to give you the best price, and go from there.
I'd be happy if we could get our 10,000 from the heritage study back, I guess.
That's a good business attitude, Council Mellon. Okay, so, anything here? Okay, Harold, then I'm going to ask the clerk to draw up a resolution allowing staff to go ahead with a pre-purchase of this bridge, and we'll add it under discussion items for Jay. That way it gives you time. No, we'll do it later.
Okay.
I'd rather do it then, thank you. If there's nothing else, thanks a lot, Harold, for coming back to council. We like being updated and certainly enjoy your fresh approach at this major project for us.
Thank you very much for your continued confidence in our services. Thank you.
Okay. Just writing this down. So now we'll get into the meat of the meeting. So action request, first one, PE 2022-01, interim control bylaw, cannabis facilities.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report PE 2022-01 to pass an interim control bylaw prohibiting any new cannabis production facilities or the expansion of any existing cannabis production facilities within the municipality, subject to certain exemptions described in the attached bylaw, and direct staff to undertake a review respecting land use planning policies pertaining to cannabis production facilities within the municipality.
Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. In the report, which was deferred from Council's last meeting, I mentioned that we had quite a few public comments on two recent cannabis facilities, and definitely there are some great points raised by the public in terms of there's a lot of discussion on what is a sensitive land use, and also Deputy Mayor Gardner and others raised issues of for new facilities, does the municipality have an odor control bylaw or the equipment if there are odor complaints? So we're recommending through this report and a bylaw later in the meeting that council put a temporary freeze on cannabis production facility applications in order to research and have time to prepare documents on both those topics. I do have in the bylaw an exemption for a facility that's already in the site plan control process and is much farther than the 300 meter. I think it's about 700 meters away from any residential uses. And if any other applications come in that are meeting those setbacks, council can pass a bylaw to exempt those properties as well. But in particular, looking at adding a few policies in the official plan to greater discourage any significant variations to the setbacks that are approved by council, to prepare a bylaw for looking at odor control. And there's, I guess, one other thing is that there's not a cost to South Dundas, since we're looking at this with several of the other municipalities in SDNG, and we received a grant from the province of about $112,000 to update zoning bylaws. So we would just add this to the work plan, and the only thing I guess would be the odor control bylaw. That might there might be a small cost just to put that together and work with your bylaw officer. So that's our recommendation, and like I said, if there are any applications that come forward between now and when the study is complete, council has the opportunity to exempt them from the temporary freeze. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions, concerns, Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. I think this is actually the responsible thing to do. I like putting a pause on it. I know that comments within our community are, about whether or not we're saying no to business. And I think what folks need to understand is it's not saying no to business. What it is we need the business model to catch up to the point where the technology is there. There's companies that have done this correctly and does not create a conflict between users of land. So I think that putting a pause on it and having a look and adjusting our bylaws is the responsible, respectful thing to do. And, the technology is so new and this business model is so new, and there will be companies and entrepreneurs that get it right. And those will be the folks that will want to welcome in, because they will not create, they'll have the technology in place to not create this conflict, whether it's smell or noise or water usage or whatever the case may be, all the concerns that we've talked about and listened to in those public meetings. So I'm definitely in favor of this one. I think it's the right thing to do.
Councilor Lewis?
Yes, I do believe that after listening to to the residents and the businesses. I believe this is the best way to go and the safest way to go, so I would support this with no problem whatsoever.
Councilor
Thank
Mellon.
you.
This is, just more collateral damage, and I think we're trying to take care of the collateral damage from, the feds passing it down to the province passing it down to us, and we get stuck right in the, so I think this is a good thing to do, especially when, we have some money that we can utilize through the counties to undertake this review and figure out the best way moving forward. And agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner, there's some that are going to do it right and, where they should be and, away from everybody and, put her in the back 40 and drive on. Don't stick it in the middle of our towns. Good.
Okay. Well, I agree with the interim code bylaw. It gives us time to figure this out right. We stuck things on the wall and hope they stuck, and there certainly was, it appears that there's some holes in it from what we've seen of the last two applications, and they both were denied because of the reasons of our current bylaw. So we're not trying to change things on the fly, but learning lessons along the way and trying to do things better is what we need to do. Question, Peter, if there's technically now cannabis facilities out there that are licensed but not zoned correctly, how do we handle them?
So if they were approved before the bylaw came into place and they met the bylaw at the time, for example, let's say in the past, if it was interpreted as an agricultural use, if they wanted to, they'd still be permitted, they'd be legal non-conforming if they were established legally. But if they wanted to expand, they would need permission from council first before submitting an application. So if they didn't meet the new setbacks, then we could have a conversation with council if you were interested in proceeding with, let's say, an existing facility that wasn't even close to the new setbacks. So there would be, we would go back to council for consideration before considering an application. Okay,
I guess I say this out of concern because some of these facilities tend to be quote unquote fly by night and operate where they think is a place in South Dundas where people don't go by often enough and don't catch, and I'm just wondering how we deal with them, legal or not legal. So
if they were legal, then we can still prosecute under this existing bylaw. Even though it's put on pause, the bylaw and the setbacks still would apply to anyone. And they would, because they're not allowed to establish a new facility, they would be prohibited from whether it was the only ones that would be exempt is if they were done, let's say, years and years before. I don't know if there are too many that were established legally long before the bylaw was in place, but since the Health Canada regime is fairly new.
okay, that's it. Any other further questions from council? All heard in motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Peter. For now, next one, ES 2022-03, Donald Haynes Branch 1 Assessment Schedule Update.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that Monica Shade, VP of Engineering and Sales of Shade Group Incorporated, be appointed by resolution as the engineer to prepare a new assessment schedule for Branch 1 of the Donald Haynes Municipal Drain under Section 76 of the Drainage Act.
Justin, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. In front of you is a report recommending that Monica Shade from Shade Group Inc. be appointed as the engineer to produce a new assessment schedule under Section 76 of the Drainage Act for the Don Haynes Municipal Drain Branch 1. The same engineer has already been appointed by a resolution to produce a new assessment schedule for the entire Don Haynes watershed, but the purpose of this appointment is to expedite Branch 1 in the hopes of continuing with maintenance this year. Unfortunately, she cannot produce two separate reports under Section 76, which is why staff would like a second appointment for that specific branch. If any members of council have any questions, I will try to answer them at this time.
Councilor Mellon.
No, I mean, it's necessary to get done. You gotta have a proper updated assessment. We got a lot of them outdated.
Councilor Lewis, anything?
I have no questions. We talked quite a bit about the Don Haynes strain, so no, I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, Mayor?
No questions, Mayor.
Okay, well, I do appreciate you bringing this forth, Justin. We did have a discussion on it, and it's the only way we're gonna get this branch expedited, and it's gotta be done. Just simple as that, 76 till now, and that, I don't think that branch has ever been cleaned out properly, so. If there's nothing further, all heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries, thank you. Next one, TS 2022-01, the RFT number TS 22-07, 3/4 ton crew cab 4x4 truck.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that council accept report TS 2022-02 to award RFT number TS 2207 to purchase one 3/4 ton crew cab 4x4 truck in the amount of $58,000 plus HST to Upper Canada Motor Sales.
Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So in front of you, you'll find the bid submissions which we received for the 3/4 ton truck. So during the 2022 budget deliberations, Council approved the purchase of one 3/4 ton truck. I presented a program of reallocating vehicles, and I think I did more confusion to council than good. But anyways, I'll give you the Coles Notes version. So with this new vehicle, it will be used to replace unit number 17 or 72, which is presently within Environmental Services. But the new vehicle will be allocated to the Williamsburg Public Works Garage. Unit 82 will then be moved to the Williamsburg Williamsburg Public Works Garage and allocated to Environmental Services. Truck 72 was identified through the fleet replacement plan and will be dispersed of through Gov Deals. So this is what the new vehicle, this new 3/4 ton truck, will go to the Williamsburg Garage and be used every day by our Public Works Department. So the cost, the net cost would be $59,020.84. The balance of the work will need a yellow strobe light, a toolbox, and a back rack before the vehicle is placed into service. And that pricing for those strobe lights and toolbox was all part of the big number of $67,000. So we're still going to fall under budget. So I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
I have no questions, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis?
No
Councilor
questions.
Mellon?
No, I'm good with, it's not, I'm gonna say something smart about a Dodge, but it's not there. Yeah, no, I'm good. That's good. It's a good truck. Yep, we don't need the diesel at that price. Come on.
No, it's good bidding, it worked out all right, so I'm glad. There's nothing further, you all heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you. Next one is WW 2022-01, Water and Wastewater SUV tender results.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that council accept report WW 2022-01 to approve the purchase of one 2022 Chevrolet Equinox LT all-wheel drive from Upper Canada Motor Sales for the Wastewater Department in the amount of $30,300 plus HST.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. At the 2022 water wastewater budget, Council approved to have one SUV added to the water fleet for $41,000. This vehicle will be used for, we'll basically be doing our sampling and doing our water rounds with it. It came under budget at $30,833.30. And like I say, it'll be our department really needs this for sampling and doing the rounds and stuff. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dennis. Comments, questions, concerns? Councilor Mellon?
Drive on.
Councilor Lewis?
It's a lot cheaper than whenever I bought my Equinox.
Mayor?
I just have a question. It's more of a general question. When we have SUVs that are comparable in price, because there's not a huge, like the first and the second, there's not a huge, do we do a customer, like a consumer review, like just to see what the feedback is on that vehicle, if there's one that's rated higher, like, you know, just a question, because I mean, $2,000 is not that much money
Go ahead.
for this.
And maybe Jeff, through you, Mayor to Deputy Mayor Gardner. So we do look at, one of the things we look at is warranty. If there are comparables in warranty, is one, 5 years, 60,000, or is one 5 years, 100,000?
Yeah.
Both of these vehicles are
Okay.
comparable when it comes to warranty, and that's, I think, the biggest one that we're looking at right now.
Okay.
But unless Jeff wants to add anything more to it, but.
Okay, just a
Yep,
question.
absolutely.
It's been a while since I've seen them so close, so I was just wondering. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Still not as close to that $700 that we had to tussle over with in our first term.
Yeah.
Councilor Lewis knows about it because he's the one that tendered it out. So the challenge with your idea makes sense for a personal buy, but unless you're going to specify in the tender that you'll be looking at these kind of things, then how is it fair? Like, you really got to specify in tender. We will look at life cycle analysis. We will look at all these little things. And then you'll end up having to grade it. And price is price.
Isn't that covered only, we don't guarantee we'll take the lowest bid? Like, isn't that wording in there?
I don't think so. I wouldn't want to take that. We can ask a legal advice but I think it's going to cost more than the $2,000
Okay,
we
never
saved.
mind, I'm just curious.
Okay. Well, as I
Not a
said,
hill I wanna die on.
I don't know, what was that GMC truck? When year we buy that? 210, $700 between Upper Canada and Brookshell
Cornwall.
at the
Yep.
time, and
Yep.
we took the Brookshell deal for $700. And
We bought two.
yeah, so that was not a comfortable decision that night.
Okay.
Same truck. Anything further? All seen, heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thanks, Dennis. Next one, PE 2022-04, tender results, Iroquois Beach washroom sewer upgrades.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that council accept report PE 2022-04 to award the design and construction of the Iroquois Beach sewer upgrades to David Brown Construction Limited for $73,690 plus HST, and that additional funding for the project be taken from the sale of asset reserve.
David, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you is a report with regards to a tender that was put out based on the 2022 budget. The plan was to, we allocated $40,000 from the sale of asset reserves already to hook the Iroquois Beach washroom in with the existing force main that runs nearby. It's a similar system that's done at the golf course nearby. Tender was issued on February 4th. Staff were hoping to use a design build style of tender, which just involves the contractor. It works a little bit with the type of work. A smaller excavation company isn't going to be able to do the design work in-house. A larger one will be able to, was one of the thoughts of it. So it gave the smaller guys an opportunity to work with the consultant, or the bigger guys to bid on it as a design build. Additionally, the biggest reason that I went with this way is to try and speed up the process so we could get a contractor in and the design done and the work done before this summer, in hopes that we can start saving on the cost of pumping out the holding tank that's there right now, which costs $5,000 to $7,000 a year for us to pump it out. Through the tender, we did have 8 companies pull the tender, and I know that I reached out to a few other local companies, like I do with most other tenders, and I know a few other people looked at it. We just got the one bid from David Brown. It came in over budget, so that's why this report's out there to pull a little bit more money from the sale of asset reserves. So staff are presenting 3 options. I'm still recommending moving forward with the project, even though it's over our initial budget. I think it's still a strong return on investment project for South Dundas. At the end of the day, we are spending $5,000 to $7,000 right now pumping out that holding tank every year. At the end of the day, we're going to put in infrastructure that'll hopefully last 50 years, and the only real mechanical working part in this is the pump, which should last 10 to 15 years, fingers crossed. Right now, we pay the $5,000 to $7,000. I say that we have a very competitive price in our pumping right now, and I think it's that moving sewage waste is one of those things that I think is likely to climb faster than we'd like it to. So I presented 3 options, all of them moving forward with it. Option 1 is how the report is presented, and it would be moving forward with David Brown, just in hopes of getting the project done before the summer to save the funds this year. And, but as you can see in the report, I've broken out an additional spare pump in their price. We wouldn't purchase that pump this year. Instead, we'd delay that until next year. If the pump breaks in year 1, I'm not going to put in the backup pump. I'm going to be going back to the provider and asking why my pump broke in year 1. I did put option 2 in there, which is similar to option 1, just we would get the backup pump this year, get it all over with now. And then option 3, which is one that I hem and hawed a little bit about, I do think it has some good merits, and that's rather than going with a design build, going back to a design bid build. So that would have me going back to either a designer now, getting it designed, then we'd re-tender it out for building, and then we'd get all the small guys, everybody. It tends to get you a little bit more of a few more apples in there, but it takes away some of the innovation of the design, and it would slow us down at this point. So just looking to keep things rolling in this project and try and get it done before this summer. I'm excited to hear what council has to say between the options. I'm open to all of them. Outside of that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Well, sir, you got me at ROI. You weren't here in my first term, and all I kept preaching was the ROI, so thank you. I love that outline, I really do. It makes my commentary on it a lot easier. So when you break down the return on investment and show what and why and the reasoning behind it, that's the way to do it in my mind. So thank you very much. I'm okay with option 1. I think you've explained it very well in the options, and I do appreciate you digging deep to give us multiple options instead of just coming forth with one. So I'm okay with option 1, and definitely a big fan of the ROI. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
That holding tank has been an issue when the old building was there.
It's the same holding tank.
Yeah, exactly. I know when I was working for the municipality, it was anywhere from a week and a half to 2 weeks. You had them there emptying the tank, and it cost a fortune. As far as I'm concerned, the bang for the buck is option 1. That's the way I would go. And then that saves a lot of headaches, and everything's done, and then you don't have a bunch of little contractors in there. So I would go with option 1 myself. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Melton?
Yeah, what's the warranty on that pump that would be in there?
I don't know until it's supplied, but I would suspect it's probably only 1 year.
Okay. I can see your justification in not maybe buying the second pump now. Sometimes you sort of wonder, well, I can't imagine the thing going to get any cheaper next year. Somebody's going to be sitting around this council table and saying, we got to, budget a pump. Why didn't you buy it when you bought the thing? That would be my only question there. And just out of curiosity, did you get any feedback as to why we didn't get any bids, only the one?
It's in the report a little bit. I think the design build did make it a little bit more, like, that's one of the negatives. I don't want to get into the weeds on design build and design bid build, but it is one of the negatives to doing a design build is it is a little bit more difficult to bid on. But you tend to get more people involved earlier. You get the contractor and the designer at the same table coming up with a more practical design. The negative is you're not always comparing apples to apples. Yeah. Because you're bidding on, we have a problem, I want to hook this pipe up to this, give me a solution, rather than hiring a consultant to come up with the solution and then having people bid on that solution.
Hire a consultant, you're going to pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm good with option 1. We're going to be roughly 40 over our budget. And like Deputy Mayor Gardner has already mentioned, it's great to see, this makes sense. I mean, We're gonna be taking 40,000 out of sale of assets to make up the difference. My only suggestion is that, some of that savings from not pumping would go back into the sale of assets. I mean, I don't like to see us taking money out of that sale of assets. Where normally would the 5,000 to 7,000 be coming out of? That would be coming out of Parks and Recreation. So that would be my only, we're taking money out of a sale of asset reserve. I'd just like to maybe, us put some money back into that on our savings. It's my only thought, Mayor.
Go ahead, David.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Mellon's point on option 2, one thing about if we did pick up the pump this year, it might have a contractor's markup on it this year. That's the contractor's price. If we're just buying a pump, I can probably skip a contractor. And then with regards to returning the funds, we can budget for that in 2023's budget. It's in the repairs and maintenance. I just don't know if we can put it directly back into sale of asset, because it isn't exactly a sale of asset, but we can work with Treasury as whether it goes, which reserve it goes back to.
Well, if we're taking it out of sale of assets to fund another department, we should be able to put the money back in, couldn't we? Shouldn't we? I don't know.
Just thinking off the top, that means the next council will have to do that every year, pay it back the loan, so that's your default problem with that one. Good thinking, but.
Yeah, I think the only way around that is council would have to enter into a loan agreement internally to pay this back to the sale of asset reserve fund for a period of 5 years if council wants, where similar to our streetlights that we did, right? We loaned internally and set up a payment where the savings goes towards the payment. That's the only way that we could probably do it if council wanted to.
Yeah, because, just my thought, because, we're taking money out of one area to finance another, which,
You know what? 2 years from now, you won't even think about it anymore.
yeah, okay, but other than
It's
that,
just like on the farm, when you bought the tractor, you probably thought, well, I'll borrow from this pot, but then 2 years from now, well, I quit paying that pot back. So I know I know how it works.
no, I'm good with option 1, Mayor Bivels, and, whether somewhere down the line you want to refinance that back into sale of assets, any cost savings. I think you're absolutely right. I think, 5,000 to 7,000, I think in another year or two could be 8 to 9 quite easily as far as our cost if we continue with the pump out, so.
I'm just checking to see if we got enough money in there without asking the treasurer.
352,000 the end of this
Yeah,
year.
I got that number, 300 and some thousand sitting here. I don't throw anything away. Every once in a while, it comes in handy.
It'll take me a week and a half to find that.
I will say this, council's going that direction. I was gonna say no, that's just crazy, spend $70,000 to pump out a beach house that has 10 weeks of service life. It's a lot of money. I would find some other way of figuring it out. Now, if the tank's going anyway, then throws a whole bunch of different questions in the equation. So, if council wants to go down that road, it's okay. I just, who does the pump outs now? Do we have a contractor that does it, or we just phone one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have one primary, and then sometimes if they're too busy for emergency pumps outs, we end up having to call around to see whoever can get there the fastest.
Okay. Have you ever gone down the road of recurring services on that?
Not at the moment, but I know from getting different prices last year, I can tell you the supplier that we have now is competitive.
Okay. Well, if you feel that way and knowing you well enough, then I'll go live with that. I will caution council on spending more of the sale asset reserves, because I know we're going to get money from the sale we just did up in Campbell Street. I'm a firm believer that you're going to take that money and pay back the loan, because that's the whole premise behind it. Because what happens is, we'll just put it in that account, and taxation is paying the loan over here, and you're blowing the money over here. Yeah, I know you're mixing things up, but that's the principle of it, just my thoughts, but. Anyway, I'm not gonna disagree with the numbers. It's just a lot of money to spend. When we were gonna spend 40 and now we're spending 70. And I know Councilor Lewis is probably gonna tell me that's the best money he ever spent because he's been there down this road way too many times, and I understand that.
Well, I believe it is the best money that we'll ever spend for the simple reason that holding tank is most likely
Seaway
at
times?
least 30 years old. Yeah, it's been there whenever the old
That
beach
predates
house
me
was
'cause
there.
I don't even remember those times because I never ventured down that road very often. I behaved
So
myself.
it's either spend the additional 40 now or spend 15 to 20 on a new holding tank.
And you still gotta do this.
And you still got to do this no matter what you do. So to me, this makes a lot of sense. This is the bang for the buck.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to cost us a lot of money now,
Yeah.
but it's going to get rid of all our headaches.
Well,
That's the way I
Not gonna
look
get
at
rid
it.
of all our headaches.
Well, no.
His headache, but not ours.
Oh well, let me think that over again.
Okay, fair enough. Any further discussion? Nope. Not seeing any. Call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you, David. Good discussion. I'd rather have that than just rubber stamp it. Next one, FES 2022-02 Cornwall EMS Medical Tiered Response Agreement.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that council accept report number FES 2022-02 to approve the bylaw authorizing execution of the tiered response medical agreement with the Cornwall SD&G Paramedic Service.
Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight we're asking you to accept this report, that we move into an agreement with the SD&G Paramedic Service on a first response to calls that are either code 4 or the EMS rig or ambulance will be more than 20 minutes. We are kind of doing that now, providing that service without an agreement, and I've been asking EMS for one. This agreement is not just for South Dundas, but it will be for all 6 municipalities within SD&G and the city of Cornwall. We're all have agreed on this particular agreement. I've attached the policy that I wrote for the South Dundas Fire Emergency Services within the agreement itself. It's we'll go to the firefighters. It'll explain what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We are already doing this training through the BLS first aid and defibrillation. We also train in the last 3 years on oxygen admin. When I got here, there was oxygen on the truck and they were training, so we're now doing that part of it also. So we're ahead of the game when it comes to that. So I'd ask council to approve this report and the bylaw later. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council Mellon.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it, we're sort of we're doing this now, and everybody's sort of on board. I guess, Cameron, the only question I ask is, will the new regulation coming down, will that affect this, what our training, what any extra training we're going to have, or that way?
Now, through you to you, Mr. Mayor, no, this will not affect that whatsoever. So
Okay. Let's go.
getting done.
Council Lewis.
No, I have no questions on this. It
Yep,
makes a
Mayor.
lot of sense.
I have a general thing just about response times.
So I know that there's been some talk about the response rates. Does this assist it? Does it, because I know it says in it that there's going to be quarterly reports. Is it assist, like when the fire goes because the paramedics are too long, is that helping? Is like, what about the response time?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's why Appendix A and B, which is getting drafted right now
Yeah.
by the EMS, so we can compare notes and say, yeah, are we helping in this certain area? So yes, it will help response times, because we had one 2 weeks ago where we were with the patient for almost 40 minutes before the EMS arrived, and they were just hung up at the hospitals, right? It's the day we
So
live.
is it your intent to bring those reports forward to council quarterly,
We
or?
will share them with council. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Chief, are all firefighters trained to do this?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, all the firefighters are trained to do this except for the last hire group. I'll put it to you that way, and they are going through this the Easter weekend. There's 9 of the 14 are in first aid the Easter weekend. I think it's the 15th and 16th or 16th and 17th. So yes, they'll all be up to speed.
Okay, I guess I know that we've been doing it for a while. I know our former chief actually got us out of it because he was scared of the liabilities of it. I don't have a major problem with it, just as long as it doesn't become the expectation of the EMS to use this as a crutch. That's my fear, is that we don't have to rush because they can deal with our problem. And the challenge is we're only, even our best trained person can't fix every problem. When someone comes and then all of a sudden somebody's looking for, well, if the ambulance was here, they could have saved them. And what's going, the potential is there. I know that, we do have some areas of South Dundas, mainly the, Iroquois West corridor that, is challenged with times. And sitting on the Joint Services Committee at City of Cornwall, the counties, we're doing our best. I know Councilor Armstrong or Deputy Mayor Armstrong really pushed to get an extra ambulance in the rural areas, SDG, and we're getting one. I will reaffirm that we're getting one because it isn't even built yet. However, I've also had discussions with people waiting for ambulance that, as much as it wasn't a critical issue, it is a critical issue because they don't know what's going on, and every minute seems like an hour, and I understand that we're there to help, but I think the emphasis even to our residents, we're there to help the best we can, but we're not an ambulance service. We can't fix some things that are that have happened to people, certainly not as well as paramedics. So as long as the agreement is fair between us and them, and we understand that we can't, especially the firefighters know that they know their capabilities. That's just like everything else, right? Know what you can do and what you can't do, and hope help comes along the way. So, okay, good enough. Anything further from any members of council? Anything from you, Chief?
No.
Okay, you all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, CS 2022-04, the Iroquois and Morrisburg Waterfront Committee's revised draft terms of reference.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that Council accept report CS 2022-04 to approve the revised terms of reference of the Iroquois and Morrisburg Waterfront Committees.
Go ahead.
So through you, Council, Mr. Mayor, as you know, the terms of reference are currently in 2 separate states, one for the Iroquois and one for the Morrisburg Waterfront Committees, and they have not been updated since 2013. Last May, prompted by the Iroquois Waterfront Committee, a draft was presented to Council, but was subsequently not supported at that time. So we have some new staff on board, and we're looking to achieve some consistencies among the committees of Council. So we've undertaken a review and started with the waterfront committees. So what we're recommending is not merging the committees, but having one terms of reference for both committees, outlining in those terms of reference the respective differences between the 2 committees. We have instituted, or have in the draft instituted, some stronger parameters regarding the mandate and staff support surrounding governance. But I think I'll leave it there. The draft was provided, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. Thanks for your work on this. I think we should have consistency between the committees of Council. I think that when I first got here, you're just handed a list of committees, you're told where to go, and you just kind of show up. And, when things are working well, they work well until they don't. And if you don't have a clear terms of reference, lots of time and energy from our dedicated volunteers can be wasted. And personalities sometimes can circumvent what the vision is and what the intent is of these committees. And I like to see committees have a good value for the people that attend. They go, they achieve something, and they move on. So one of the best ways to do that is to have a very clear terms of reference. So I'm definitely in favor of this. I think you have outlined it really well. I think that there may be some work to do in as far as reeling back some of the committees that are kind of maybe not working within their mandate. And I think, but I think it's for the legacy of those committees, we have to make sure that it's good value for the people that are interacting with those committees, or what's the point? I mean, there's not a quicker way to kill volunteer enthusiasm than have 2 hours of wasted time in the dead of winter. So I think this is the way to go. I think I appreciate your work on this, and I think it's an excellent start.
Councilor Lewis?
I can never understand why Iroquois Waterfront Committee's reference was completely different from Morrisburg. They're both there for the same reason. 90% of the time they do the same jobs. So to me, if the references should be the same for both, and not only the Iroquois and Morrisburg Waterfront, but any committees that are similar, the references shouldn't be different, they should be the same. So I read this, I read it twice, and I believe this is a good start, and I think we're headed down the right road. So I thank you very much for taking your time to do this. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, hopefully this will give us better clarification and guidance, making sure everybody stays on the straight and narrow. The only, I guess, point, and I've read it over a couple times, and I didn't really see it in there, and I'm assuming that it is, committee members would be held sort of the same as council as far as declaring a conflict, or utilizing their services, or, a committee member bidding on a job or whatever. Are they sort of bound by, it's not really mentioned in this committee in these term of reference, unless I didn't read between the lines good enough, or I just wonder if that should be in there.
Go ahead.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the exact location, but yes, we did include a clause, and I could further spell it out, but it did include the fact that all volunteers would be bound by all policies, procedures, including the procedural bylaw as well. So that would also cover procurement.
Yeah, I mean, if they look at this and if they're not, sort of familiar with, our conflict of interest and, what we know about it, somebody, maybe some reference to that a little clearer, because, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Madam Clerk, is that, they're supposed to know, but will they know if it's not maybe mentioned in here? It might just clarify and maybe ward off any potential, conflicts if it's mentioned somewhere, somehow. I don't know how, I'm not.
Well, I noticed in your report, Clerk, you mentioned that committees of council are under obligation to adhere to the procedure bylaw and all policies, procedure of municipalities. As much as that's a assumed thing, should we put it in there?
And there is, under reporting processes on the last page, the third last bullet, there is a statement that says each waterfront advisory committee shall adhere to the policies, procedures, and guidelines established by the municipality, including the procedural bylaw. What I'm thinking is perhaps we add a preamble at the beginning that includes a clause with all that, including the conflict of interest and code of conduct.
Okay.
Not
Don't
sure.
want to get overly wordy because it'll
Yeah, I
scare
know, you
people
don't wanna
off.
I know, I agree. You don't want to make it overly wordy, but I'm just afraid somebody's gonna look at this and say, well, I didn't see that in there, and, you know.
Well, to be honest, I think it's captured in this reporting process, it's there, and it's up to council to make sure it's done right, and the council committee rep to make sure it's done right. You can add it more if you want. I see, do you want it?
Well, I don't want it to be too wordy, I don't want, you know, a big, long,
Well, maybe what you can do is say, in addition, that each waterfront committee, advisory committee shall adhere to the policies, procedures, and guidelines established by the municipality of South Dundas, including procedure bylaw, and then add
Sure.
onto their codes of conduct and conflicts of interest. Just add on to that sentence and then.
just trying to hedge.
Go ahead.
And if I might add, Pullock has just reminded me too, we are developing a committee handbook that each and every volunteer would also be issued. So I think we're really trying to cover all the bases that no one would be ill-informed.
Well, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Answered.
Well, I know that last year the Iroquois Waterfront Committee came with their version of terms of reference, and we as council, we're not happy with that. I think, no disrespect to any members of any committees, but I think it's fair of council to set the terms of reference. That's in theory why we ask committees to be formed. I think this document is excellent, and I commend the clerk for putting it together. I think it's, it's more than one page. It puts a lot into print that needs to be in print. I think, no disrespect to either waterfront committee, but sometimes you get into the weeds, and every once in a while you got to pull this piece of material out and say, this is what we got to do, this is how we do it, let's kind of focus on it. And I do believe, and have Iroquois and Morrisburg on the same path but different places still works. I think, we're all wanting to get to the same place, which is to have excellent waterfront facilities for not only our residents, but residents from afar or new residents too. So, no, I think it's a bit overdue. Like, we are here in our last year of the mandate, but I think it gives the next council a good foothold in if they're going to continue on with committees, that they have something to work with. Anything further? Go ahead.
I just add,
Mayor, that with this, I would like to see a meeting once a year with the chair of all committees, actually, to be honest with you, not just the two we're discussing. And I think that it needs to be reminded, maybe yearly or maybe sooner than that. These committees of council are supposed to work with council. If you don't want to work with council and you want to be on that committee, then run to sit around council. So I think I've attended a lot of these committee meetings, and when they work really well, the intent is there to work with council and the municipal staff and get something accomplished. When they fail is when the personalities act more like an elected body than a committee of council. So I think a meeting maybe yearly just to catch up and, just kind of make sure everyone's good would be probably good.
Okay. Anything further? All heard motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you. Next report, CAO 2022-03, Carmen Road Water Main Relining RFT WW 22-08.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that council accept report CAO 2022-03 to award the Carmen Road Water Main Relining Project to 4Action Incorporated for $1,123,000.85 plus HST, and that the shortfall be funded through the water reserve.
Shannon, go ahead.
Council. This project we've actually been discussing back in March of 2021. At that time, council did direct staff to proceed with having EVB Engineering prepare a Class A to have work done on our Carmen Road water line due to the amount of water breaks that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. At that time, ICIP Greenstream came out, which at that time was I guess a perfect fit that met the criteria for the application, which the municipality did submit and are awaiting provincial and federal approval. At this time, we did tender the specs. We received 2 bids, which are attached to council with a letter from EVB with their recommendation. And at this time, we're recommending for action in the amount of $1,123,008.85 plus HST. We did, in our 2022 budget, did allocate $930,000, which was made up of OSIF funding, reserve contributions, as well as water rate contributions. So what we're looking for tonight is to proceed with the project, which includes all 3 phases, which is the 6, 8, and 10-inch components. Any overrun will be depleted from our water rate reserve, with the hope still of receiving approval for our applications under the ICIP. So Dennis is here tonight if council does have any technical questions that I certainly cannot answer. And if any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Okay, any comments right now, Dennis?
No, I think we, personally, I think we move on with getting the whole system done if it's funded. We've had 19 water breaks in there since 2003, so the main has lots of holes in it and it's starting to deteriorate, so I think it's time to get it fixed.
Okay, comments, questions, concerns? Council Mellon, start.
No, I don't, but, we've had we've gone around this quite a few times, so no, I'm good with it.
Council Lewis?
No, we had many discussions on this line, and I think it's time to move forward, get it done, get it over with. Thank you.
And Mayor?
I agree.
Okay, well, I can't disagree. It's definitely an issue that needs to be dealt with, and hopefully the upper tier government will come through with the funding, but still got to be done. So if there's nothing further, all heard motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Dennis and Shannon. So we're in the bylaws, 2022-22, interim control bylaw, cannabis facilities.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2022-22, being a bylaw to adopt interim controls prohibiting any new cannabis production facilities or the expansion of any existing cannabis production facilities within the municipality, subject to certain exemptions, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Anything to add to this, Peter?
No, thank you for the discussion, Mayor, earlier.
Okay, anything further from council on this? Seeing none, all heard in motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Next one, 2022-24, the Thorpe Ellis Municipal Drain, Section 75.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that council give first and second reading of bylaw number 2022-24, being a provisional bylaw outlining proposed drainage works within the Thorpe Ellis Municipal Drain, and to notify the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal of such works, given that the watershed of the Thorpe Ellis Municipal Drain extends into their respective municipality, to be read up and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Justin?
Good evening, thank you for having me again. In front of you is a note regarding Section 75 of the Thorpe Ellis Municipal Drain. Under the Drainage Act, we are required to notify any additional municipalities of proposed work on a municipal drain prior to commencing the work if the watershed extends into their boundaries. So as you may or may not be aware, the Thorpe Ellis watershed does extend into the municipality of Edwardsburg Cardinal. With that section of the watershed being the most upstream section of the drain, they will have to pay a share of the bill for the proposed maintenance. Staff estimates that the work will be around $35,000, and approximately 7% of that bill will be charged to the lands within Edwardsburg Cardinal, as per the engineer's report. Once the 2 readings of the bylaw are done, we will serve notice to the clerk of Edwardsburg Cardinal to notify them of our proposed work. And from there, they have 40 days to submit any appeals. After that, we can start with the work. So if any member of council has any questions, I can try to answer them at this time.
Okay, Justin, just a question. You have attached the drainage plans here in our report. You are aware of the drain that was redone earlier in the...
Yes. Yeah,
2010.
Mr. Mayor, that's, was 2010, but that was the upper section of the drain.
Yeah.
Which doesn't include the section that I'm proposing maintenance on, so that's why
Yes.
I took the older report.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure. I'm sure Council Mellon had that question, so any comments?
No, I realized that Fort Ellis was done in 2 sections, and the upper section was expensive, the one with the blasted, jackhammered rock and stuff, but nope. Part of the game that you have to do to get Edwardsburg Cardinal know that their water's going somewhere.
Yeah. Any other questions on this side? All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Justin. Next one, 2022-25, part lot control for lots 12 to 20, RP 8M-14.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2022-25, being a bylaw to lift part lot control for lots 12 to 20 inclusive, registered plan 8M14 in the geographic township of Williamsburg, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Peter?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a part lot control application to split 9 semi or future semi-detached lots into 1 side each, so for a total of 18 lots. Because this has already gone through the plan of subdivision process, this is a way to speed up the process where no severance is needed. So if council passes this bylaw, it'll be signed by the counties and the developer will be able to transfer lots. I understand some of them have closing dates at the end of the next month in terms of transferring the lots. So this will help move Dutch Meadows development forward.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns on this? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Peter. Next bylaw, 2022-26, Cornwall EMS response agreement.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that bylaw number 2022-26, being a bylaw to authorize execution of a medical tiered response agreement between the municipality of South Dundas and the City of Cornwall SDG Paramedic Services, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Chief, anything further on this?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Any further questions from any member of council? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Consent agenda, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for items 9B and 9C be moved to discussion items.
All heard the motion. Oh, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm trying to get back into my agenda, sorry. So tonight we have key information report on recurring services for 2022-23. We also have Ontario 2022 Ontario Farmland Form. All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Now we're on the boards, committees, and discussion items. First one is County Council. And thanks to my wife, Debbie, she brought me my report, so I feel like I can do what I need to do without mumbling. And Council Mellon, look, a lot of paper, so get comfortable. Anyway, all joking aside, so County Council had a meeting on February 22nd, which was a week ago today. Hot mix tender for the counties for this year was awarded to Cornwall Gravel at $5.3 million. Along with it was the cold in place recycling, which was $3.6 million to Roto Mill. Those numbers were within budget. We do need to keep in mind that asphalt cement adjustments can occur, and with the price of petroleum going up, that has could have an impact, but counties do have a reserve in place to deal with it. So in South Dundas, County Road 1 from County Road 40 to Irena is scheduled to be done, and County Road 16 or Brinston Road from 401 to just south of 18 Dixon's Corners are on the plan for this year. We also approved modernization funding, which comes from the province to update services among several municipalities. So public works permit was one of them, and that is more, SCG will be taking the lead along with a number of upper tiers to electronically place permitting for public works on a platform. There's also a joint zoning bylaw that look at, like Peter Young has alluded to, and that has all the lower tiers of SDG involved in. And there's a joint subdivision and site plan, working plan for the same municipalities. There was a draft roadside signage policy discussed. So last year, some members of council may have noticed the SDG staff started taking down the blade signs for roads. I brought that up as a concern, and following that, county council asked county staff to go back to the drawing board and come up with a roadside signage policy with in mind that we put signs up on every county road, and that's not the old highways. So there was some discussion on that. It's going to be a multi-year project, but eventually there will be roadside signage put back up indicating where the roads are, and of course it also deals with all the other signage that the counties work with. And there was also a notice of motion that I brought forward concerning the potential for putting stop arm cameras on school buses to deal with infractions of drivers going through those lights and the stop arms. And to get that process started, I asked SDG staff to look into it and see what they can do, what we can do. From my understanding of it, first of all, Trustee Bill McPherson from the Upper Canada District School Board brought a motion through at the board level to request upper tiers to enact a bylaw to enforce this. The provincial rule is there, but it needs enforcement through bylaw at the upper tier level. So this is step one of where we're going to go to, and of course every step takes council's concurrence on it. Any questions on that? Okay, February 28th, special Now Needs Roads meeting today. So Deputy Mayor and I went to Cornwall today to sit for a special council meeting, and we were just focused on Now Needs Roads. So last year at budget time, I asked County Council to approve a motion to reserve any surpluses from the Transportation Division, except for select projects like bridges, to go into a Now Needs Road Reserve. These are roads that are in need of repair or reconstruction or replacement that aren't not on the 4-year plan currently. So this morning we were presented, well, we had the information, but we were presented with a number of roads to look at. I'm not going to go through all the roads because most of the roads you wouldn't, well, you may know where they are. No, shouldn't disrespect council, but a lot of them are all over the counties. We had a budget of $3 million, which consisted of $1 million of OCIF funding that the province gave extra, and that reserve was $2 million. That was our surplus last year from transportation. So decision was, all of County Road 7 from Elma to 43 will now be done. The 4-year plan had Elma to Dunbar, and then from County Road 8, Church Road to 43, skipping the piece in the middle. So they're doing all that section. That's close to $1 million on its own. So it includes doing some work in the village of Dunbar. County Road 31 from Williamsburg to County Road 28, which is Glen Becker. So the roughest section of 31. And then County Road 22 east of Maxville, and it would be the eastern portion of that section. And It is in rough shape because they did a new water main from from the town of Alexandria to the village of Maxville, and then that construction caused some shifting of the roadway. We're also doing a skin patch on County Road 19 instead of just fixing it all up. County Road 8, so that's Church Road. From County Road 18 to Beckstead Road was on the list, but was dropped. It was actually one of the higher roads that the Director of Transportation thought would be the one we do. There's a lot of that road within a swampy area and probably corduroy road underneath it. However, I will admit that I did believe that County Road 7 was a higher road to do due to the truck traffic and a few higher average daily traffic counts on it. So all in all, I was happy with the day. I think we made some of the county better, and a lot of it is in South Dundas, and I would do it in any other part of the area, but these roads did shine no matter where you were in SDG. There is a big concern on County Road 22 on the west leg, which is from Maxville to 138, which is Dyer Road. Counties is working on widening the platform, widening the road allowance, because it's not a county road allowance yet, and then upgrading that road. But we're not at that point. It's ready to go. So, but we certainly gave direction to staff to continue doing what they need to do, and we did suggest to the next council that they continue on with that work through a motion. Of course, we can't force them to do it, but we're hoping that they will take that initiative and continue on. So, anything further on that, Deputy Mayor?
Only that we,
I asked the director to have a look at the pedestrian potential in front of Tim Hortons and
Yeah, that wasn't part of the...
No, that was the...
That was
last
an addition,
week.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the pedestrian walkway at in
In
Iroquois on County Road 2. So County Road 1 wasn't on the list, but someday it will. How's that? It's going to fall apart to the point they have no choice.
Yeah. I'll give you credit in the county, you and your Deputy Mayor Gardner and County Council. Nothing bothers me more than seeing roads piecemeal. You know, do a section here and then go down the road and do a section there. I can see that I guess the logic may be in it, but it's hard to. Hopefully, County Road 1 they'll finish that up some year.
Well, counties will be looking at the next 4-year plan during this term of council yet.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to do, because the last 4-year plan, the one we're just finishing now, we got handed. Deputy Mayor and I was that this is the 4-year plan. We could have said no to it, but we all, we went with a plan. We were a lot of rookies that year, including myself. So, however, I think we're all a lot smarter now, and I think we're going to look at this plan a little harder and say, why would you do 2 pieces and not do the piece in between? And if there's good reason, fair enough, but they do have to break it in sections. You can't do the whole road at once. And, in theory, 31 south of Glenbecker should be done someday. Hopefully it's on the 4-year plan, we'll see. It's been mentioned in the past, but, it has an average daily count of, traffic daily count of 5,000 almost, so it's up there in traffic, so it makes some logical sense. And it was the easiest sell. County Road 7 was a little harder sell, but I think in the end, enough of council saw the merit in doing that road. So lots of money being spent in South Dundas this year.
That's good.
Okay, that's my report. Anything, if there's nothing else, there's Iroquois District Business Group. I will make a comment. They didn't have a meeting, but their coordinator, Candace Latuhope, has been busy. They have a full slate of activities for this year lined up and ready to go. And as much as they're not as cohesive as maybe a BIA, she's making it work like one. And it makes a big difference in that plaza. And I gave her a lot of credit for leading that group. Motion BIA.
Shannon and I called a meeting. There was only 2 showed up to the meeting. So we had a discussion, and Rob Hunter and I are headed out either this Wednesday or this Thursday to hand deliver to each one of the businesses of the BIA to step up and become a volunteer to sit on the BIA, because there's not many left, and we're going to give them 1 week, and if nobody steps up, we will most likely be coming back to tell council that there is no DBIA anymore.
Okay, I guess we'll deal with that when the time comes. We'll see what happens. We're not going to say it's, I did say last week it was dead, and I was questioned on that by the press, and fair enough, but I said, no, technically it's not dead, but they have some work to do to get to where they need to get to. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I thought maybe 1 or 2 that came to the meeting that night at the MAC would have stepped up, but nobody.
No, it is unfortunate. I see a lot of benefits in it, but we'll see. Maybe some, you never know. So I'm not going to dismiss it right now. Any questions? Okay, South Nation Conservation Authority, Councilor Millen.
Yeah, we had, there was a meeting February 17th. Angela gave a presentation on the programs and services inventory, and there was a virtual meeting last Thursday from 2 to 3 that Shannon and yourself, Mayor Bybills, took part in. I was there too. I think they had like 24, 25 other people sort of listing the services in the inventory of the programs they provide and where they fall under the new regulations, either category 1, 2, or 3. They have about a year, a little bit more, for some feedback and any issues or concerns or whatever, because there's going to be memorandum of understanding is going to be required for some of those programs and services. But I think, I think there's going to be some work ahead to finalize that. There was a few changes to the draft that they brought in that I questioned that thing, and was a little change in the presentation that was presented on Thursday, which I was glad to see that. What else was there? Oh yeah, we had an update on the provincial agricultural sector representative on the board. The deadline was February 21st, and they've had input from different farm organizations, but there was no, haven't heard yet who will be getting, I guess, if you will, or if we will be getting one, South Nation will be getting one, or who will get. So, but yeah, that deadline for those applications for that was last, 21st of February. So, we also had an update on Section 28, regulation policy. Had an update on that, which is development interference with wetlands and alterations of shorelines and waterways regulations. They had an update on that. Also, the new, I now approved the 2022 South Nation Conservation Flood Contingency Plan. And they gave us an update on the LIDAR program and the partnership we have with them on that. They'll be finishing it up this year, the measurements and whatnot. And we had an update on the Chesterfield Dam and the walkway on that. They're going to, after this year, restrict it to snowmobile traffic. There's getting some damage from the cleats and the carbines on top of the cement on the dam, and they're concerned about that, so they're going to allow it to continue this year. They've already had some conversations, I guess, with the OFSC and the local clubs to let them know for next year that they won't be able to use that dam. I asked if there was any other, matting or something that could be put on that, because that does provide a passway, around Chesterfield, but They will look at that. I think they're gonna maybe try to work with the clubs and see if there's a different thing, but you can see it in a way because you don't want, you know, the cement getting, I guess if you will, caught or, you know, damaged on top of the dam. I don't know if there's a whole lot more, Mayor Byvells. Oh, the 75th anniversary, they've had one event. The kickoff event was a week and a half ago, I guess. And throughout the year, they're going to have different programs and different things throughout the year. You can check out some of their programs and what they got. I think there's a rack down on the first floor, maybe that highlights that too. So if anybody wants to take part in some of their day park activities and whatnot. The next meeting is March 17th and their AGM. The meeting last Thursday was virtual. I'm not sure about March 17th. I haven't heard yet. And the AGM, I sort of asked, sort of stressed that it'd be nice if that was an in-person thing, but it's April 21st. I don't know if there's anything much more than that, Mayor Byvells.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns? I do like your idea, at least discussing with the Snowmobile Club. They're willing to put rubber mats or something down.
Yeah.
I understand the damage, because they damage our roads, and so be it there, but, you know, on the dam, like pitting and doing more damage to the concrete on a fairly expensive piece of infrastructure is a concern, but first thing I thought was cow mats lag down too, so.
That's what I sort of
There's
suggested
enough,
too.
and there's enough farmers on the Snowmobile Club to figure that out with them, but anyway,
Yeah.
I would at least pursue that, and if they can make it work, they can. If they don't, well, it's another place that snowmobilers can't go, but that's even bigger than our 9 Mile Bridge coming down.
What's that, Mayor
It's
Byvells?
bigger than our 9 Mile Bridge coming down for a snowmobile trail.
Yeah.
Where else do you cross the nation? In Chesterville.
Yep.
So, anyway, okay. Horsburgh Waterfront Committee?
Yeah, we met February 16th, working on the projects that were agreed to in our budget. So we had some discussions about the Pier Lookout project and an update. They've launched a new Facebook page to start being more, get the community more engaged with what they're working on. We had a Pathways lighting update, and we talked about the erosion prevention program, which we've discussed tonight. And they are planning a spring or summer path opening celebration. Not sure what it's going to look like, but sounds like fun.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, so the Air Quality Waterfront Committee, you have their minutes in the meeting, and we will be discussing some of the concerns that I see in there under G. South Branch Committee,
No.
Carmen House.
Nope.
Dundas County Archives, no meeting. Tourism Advisory Committee,
We have a meeting coming up March 8th.
Economic Development,
We had a meeting, I think I reported on last council, where we just went through approving a new member. We're having a meeting shortly. Actually, it's probably in my agenda sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Doctor Advisory,
Yeah, we have a couple of things. First thing, Mayor McGillis from South Stormont and I have been invited to get an introduction to the Ontario Health Team for this area. Apparently they feel that there may be some conflict between our two groups, but given the fact I've seen their presentation, I'm not sure about that. But so we'll attend that meeting, and then the CAO Garrity and I have discussed the fact that we're going to ramp up and strong arm a little bit the we had made the delegation to the Minister of Health, and there was certain things that were put on the table, and in typical provincial fashion, they're just ignoring us. So we'll see what we can do with that.
okay, good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Easter Parade discussion and next steps.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Since the letter went to you, you
Yep,
can explain it
absolutely.
to us, and then
Yep.
we can go from there.
So I had a conversation with Geraldine Fitzsimmons early last week in regards to their proposed first annual South Dundas Easter Parade. I asked her in the letter to provide what she's looking for from the municipality, which is outlined in the letter. One of the, I think the big items there is the insurance. Just for council's information, for example, Apple Fest cost us $531 for insurance. The Santa Claus Parade costs us about $353 for insurance. Now, they are looking at having live music, fashion show, barbecue, face painting, all that stuff. So there'll be some additional insurance that we might need to look into when it comes to food and stuff. I'm sure the health unit will have to be involved as well. But I did tell Geraldine that I would bring this to council with her list of what she's looking for and look for some direction from council. Because as indicated in our budget, this never came through, and I don't know if it was even thought of, I guess maybe back at budget time, but this is something coming to council tonight.
Okay, so there's no overarching organization running this. This is a small group of volunteers, basically.
As far as I see, it's a group. There's a member from the BIA or a couple from the BIA, not associated with the BIA, but businesses, and then some volunteers.
You know, I think coming out of COVID, folks are looking to do something. I don't think we've ever done something Easter related. I'd support this, but I would, in your conversations with the BIA, I think the BIA benefits the most from this, so I think potentially they have some money. I think they should cough up the expense to cover the insurance. It needs to be a partnership, and I think we can do our thing, but am I wrong? Is there not monies associated with the BIA? Some money?
There is money. The issue you have right now is you cannot get a board together as having a quorum to make a decision.
Okay.
That's your challenge.
Yeah, they can't.
So
It's tied up with a no motion, right?
well, I mean, you know, when I look at this and you have some potential BIA members, maybe that's how things get going again at the BIA level. I just, you know, it's tricky with this to punish I think this would be a good event for spring. I think people are just exhausted. I think something maybe as business as usual, people might look at this and say, why do we need this? But I think people are ready to kind of get out of the winter, get out of the pandemic. And I'd like to see some creative thing where we pull the BIA into it, whether they want to or not, because this is the type of stuff they should be doing. So I don't know how you can get that, but I know you're delivering those letters, and maybe the committee members need to also do a little bit of work with the BIA members, because it seems natural that they would cover some of the expenses. Just my 2 cents.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, when I read the names, the only person that sits on the BIA is Helen. My biggest concern on this one is it's on Easter weekend. That mall will be crazy. Is that not Easter weekend?
I don't.
Yeah, it is. It's the Easter Saturday.
Yeah.
It's the day between Good Friday and Easter.
I just think that we're going to overload the park or the shopping center, and the stores will be crazy. Some of this, what they'd like the municipality to do, chairs. Are they going to pick them up? That is our policy. We don't deliver, they pick up and deliver them back.
Our policy is tables and chairs are picked up and dropped off by the person who wants them.
That's right. Okay. Insurance? I don't think we should pick up their insurance. And did anybody ask the fire chief if he was going to lead the parade?
Cameron was just telling me, so I'll let him.
They've already, Councillor, they've already gone to the Morrisburg firefighters and asked if they would be involved. I don't have an answer as of right now, whether they said yes or no, but I can find that out tomorrow for you to get an answer.
Would nobody come to the fire chief?
No, sir.
Yeah, that's all for now.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Miller.
Well, yeah, I mean, as long as they pick up the barricades, the chairs, and the picnic tables, they want them, they pick them up and bring them back. That'll be a logistics thing for the chief and the firemen to figure out, if they can do the fire department lead the parade. I don't know why they want us to notify the police. I don't know, I think we got a bat phone or something, we get a direct line or something, I'm not sure. But the insurance, this is the first year for it. So, obviously we like, and I've been, harping, get the stuff in for budget time. Well, if this is something that's new, it's the first year for it, maybe they don't know the procedure and whatnot, so it'd be lovely if the BIA would pick up the insurance, but to get this to get up and going, I don't think this should be I think it needs to be made clear to the group, or if they're gonna try and do this on an annual basis, that, there's gotta be, follow our protocols or our procedures on that, but, I'm good with that, picking the insurance up is the biggest financial hit to us, but it's just the first year for this group, first time, so I can maybe give them cut them a little bit of slack there. But they gotta do the picking up of the infrastructure that they wanna borrow, so.
We had a very firm discussion at budget time about people doing things, and I know that this is new, but, and to be honest, I know one thing we did miss was Harvest Fest in Williamsburg, because they didn't come back to us either, but I don't know if it's going yet or not. I'm challenged with the insurance. Barricades at the shopping mall, are they picking them on a Thursday and dealing with them? It can't cost us money. That's on an Easter weekend Saturday.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm already challenged with it being on an Easter weekend. But, you're talking time and a half plus for our men to be out there and men and women to do it. I don't want to sound like I'm the Scrooge of the bunch here, but I just don't like getting dumped on, and that's what I sense here. I'm sorry, I have to say it. Notifying police, we never do that. We don't do it for Santa Claus parades, so we're going to have to figure that one out.
No, the event organizer would usually contact the police and...
Yeah, and that's, and I don't know what else, but it's a bit of a challenge, I will say that. I don't want to say no, but I think their expectations are a bit too generous. Now, where does council want to go on this? That's just my 2 cents. I'm just one voice on council. So, Deputy Mayor, let's go around it again, look at that list, and what are we going to do?
Well, some of us do have a bat phone to the OPP. I suppose we could do that, but it's not our role. I think it needs to be the organizers. I still maintain that this is what will, people having ideas that connect to the BIA or to that shopping plaza reinforce the need for a BIA that is functional, and I honestly think that the BIA should come up and help with the money. So that's where I stand. I think that if to Councillor Mellon's point, I don't want to kill it, because people get ideas at the weirdest times, and sometimes it doesn't align with our process. But the only thing for me is they have to do everything that every other group does. So I'm not willing to bend with that. They can talk to the police. They're very nice. But the insurance portion of it, I honestly think that the BIA benefits from this, and I think that needs to be pushed. That's how I see it. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think whatever, but everybody wants the municipality to do everything, and You know, in the Morrisburg BIA, you know, I've been a part of that, worked with those organizations, you know, back 20 years ago when it was quite robust and stuff, and they can do great things. And I honestly think that the check should be written by the BIA. So that's what I think.
Councilman Lewis, sorry.
Well, I completely disagree with the deputy mayor. I do not think that the BIA should pay for their insurance. And there is people on this committee that have sat on other committees, and they know at budget time, if they want money, they send a letter to council for the blessings for us to say either yay or nay.
True. But I will, hate to cut you off, but this, I imagine this idea came after our budget discussions were already done.
Wow.
So sometimes it's one of those lightning rod moments and then away they go. And now they need our help because of it. So I'm not, as I said, not dismissing it, just a bit challenged by it.
Well, I will not support it. I'm sorry. I will not.
Okay, fair enough. Council Mellon?
Well, you know, I am sort of torn between on the insurance thing. And, you know, give you a funny feeling in your stomach when the shops from, you know, the mall, which should be the BIA's territory, you know, the owners or runners of them shops are, you know, sort of going out on their own. Deputy Mayor Gardner may be right, and maybe this will maybe jumpstart things on the BIA, but if the BIA isn't, you know, they can't tap into that fund. They don't have a slush fund to start with. They don't have a, you know, a kitty to start with for the insurance. Sure, I'd like to see the BIA pick it up too, but I'm sensing just, I guess if you will, there seems to be some disconnect there between what they're trying to do and the lack of what the BIA is doing. So I'd like to see it go ahead. It's just the insurance. How much would you think it'd be costing, Shannon?
I say $500.
Yeah, I'm gonna say probably around $500-600. We can get a price if council wants and come back at a committee of the whole or something if council wants, or our next council meeting.
Unless we try and get half of it at least out of the BIA or all of it, but I mean, yeah, it's a tough one, but I don't know. The insurance is the killer to me, you know, and the lack of foresight or lack of heads up on our part and knowing about it. So I would say, yeah, go ahead with it, pay the insurance.
Okay. I have concerns about the insurance, but I'm not going to be the party pooper here. I think I'd be more than willing to do the in-kind work if it works within our normal working schedule. I'll leave it up to the fire chief and his departments to figure out whether they want to support that or not. They would have my full support one way or the other. I know that that's not, sometimes it's easy to rope people together and sometimes it's not. So as for notifying the police, we've never done that in the past, and I don't think we should start going down that road in the future. So if that seems fair to council, I know Councilor Lewis doesn't agree, but I mean, I have a challenge doing things like that through the Easter holiday for different reasons, but if people want to make it a secular event, then so be it. With that, anything further?
Nope, nope.
Okay,
So
so
we're
we'll do
gonna
the
hang-
insurance in kind, normal hours. Keep the expenses down as much as we can. We don't notify the police. That's their,
No.
they'll have to figure that out.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Next one is a letter of support for the Smoke-Free Act. I asked our clerk to draw up this letter, as council knows that we have a resident in Caraway Crescent that's had a challenge with dealing with the cannabis smoker neighbor, and she's willing to do the petition, but we offered to do a letter of support. Just want to make sure that council's good with this letter. Okay. Council concurs that this letter, so we'll send this on to Jennifer then tomorrow. Dennis, South Dundas Drinking Water System Annual Report. You want to give us the highlights? I will say that your only non-occurrence was something you couldn't control, so in my opinion, that's a good report.
That's correct. So thank you, Mayor and Council. In front of you is the 2021 Annual Water Report. I'm pleased to present this report to you. My staff did an excellent job this year providing safe drinking water to the ministry, or safe drinking water to the town and following the ministry regs. Staff we would have got 100% on the inspection, but we did have that CP20 cabinet go out on us, causing low pressure in the system. Since then, I've added some safety features that if the cabinet happens to go out and we lose control or power in the cabinet, one pump will come on and stay at 48 hertz, and the system will maintain 50 psi until an operator comes in. Now we also have our towers back in service, so we also have more redundancy. When this happened, there was no towers in place, so that's what hurt us on it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, I will make this comment. I went through the report. It's a good report. As a person that sits on council and has a personal liability risk with you operating our plant, the occurrence was dealt with the best you could, and we learned some lessons, and I think and nobody got hurt because the redundancy was there. So I'd like to thank you on my behalf and on behalf of council for you and your crew to keep the South Dundas drinking water system as safe as possible. Deputy Mayor?
No,
Thank you for the report. Like the mayor said, the personal responsibility and liability, appreciate the thoroughness. And, you know, things do happen. You don't want them to, but they do. And learning and making the process better and stronger is the best thing that can happen whenever something goes wrong. So I appreciate that, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
No, I think with a report like that, I have no questions, but I thank you, Dennis, and your staff for doing such a good job at the water plant, and not only the water plant, but the wastewater plant also.
Thank you.
Councilor Mellon?
I can sleep quite well at night knowing our water plant, and I think the residents can sleep quite well at night knowing that the water they're going to be consuming is run by a very competent staff and crew. So, let's go.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you.
Okay, donation bin request.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, there isn't a requirement to pass a council resolution to accept the annual water
Well, yes,
report.
very much. I didn't see that in my hearing.
No, sorry, I should have made a note for you. So if you don't mind, I would.
Go ahead.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that the 2021 annual report for the South Dundas drinking water system, which satisfies both Section 11 and Schedule 22 reporting requirements under Ontario Reg 17003, be received as information.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you. Now, donation bin request.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm bringing this forward to Council tonight for some direction in regards to a request we had on a donation bin. Currently, right now, they are. It used to be at the Tim Hortons in Iroquois. Due to upcoming potential renovations, they have asked for this bin to be removed, and they are looking. Well, they have sent a request to us looking to have it on the east side of the Iroquois Plaza. I did reach out to Candace for her opinion on it. They strongly oppose having it anywhere within the plaza. I did get a follow-up from the individual again, looking to see if council would be amenable on putting the box at the archive buildings on College Street in Iroquois. So I'm looking for some direction from council on how we want to proceed.
Well, I'll start with Councilor Mellon. I have an opinion, but I'm going to reserve it for now. I may not have to say it.
So they want to put the donation bin
On
out
our,
by the archives.
correct. According to their information, they pick it up every Thursday.
Yeah, I guess try it. Would that be a?
We'll move on. Councilor We had Councilor Mellon speechless.
I have seen those donation boxes. I have seen them in Iroquois. I've seen them in Morrisburg. I remember the one that used to sit at Max Milk. I've seen the one that sits at Home Hardware. If they pick them up every Thursday, I will start eating those boxes. Because you get anything from soup to nuts, household stuff. No, I can't support that. No way.
The mayor?
I'm a no unless it's,
It's a local, and by local I mean South Dundas charity that's actually doing the collection, so it's a no.
It's a no for me. I'm not having those trash bins laying around my municipality.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, I don't.
No disrespect to the person that's trying, but no, they are just a bunch of junk.
A magnet for junk.
Yeah,
what they are.
unfortunately, there's good, we do have places where used clothing can go now in South Dundas and North Dundas, so, and I know they don't take everything, and to be honest, some of that stuff should just go to our landfill. Unless there's a place that actually recycles worn out material, and there are probably, but no, they just don't work out. Unfortunately, they just don't work out. Unless this person's gonna clean up the mess, and I just know where that's gonna go. Key information report on 2022 plan exchange, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just, I was happy to see this in the package. I've had prior to the pandemic, actually, I had a conversation with a Morrisburg resident that brought this idea, I don't know if it's this particular idea, but had brought a very similar idea forward, and I had worked with the staff at the time, and we've had some changeover in staff. Just in talking to people, and aside from my last name being Gardner, but I actually am a Gardner, I had some concerns about just location. It seems pretty top heavy. Like when I had talked to the residents about why aren't we doing a plant exchange, it was basically people that were dividing flowers in their garden, and instead of composting them, they wanted to have an opportunity to exchange them with like-minded people. And if you do some research on the exchanges, it can go to beautification in a village, and it can go to even property standards, where people that don't garden all of a sudden try gardening because it's free. And I'm just wondering how we seem to be doing a really big event for something that could be maybe local to the villages of Iroquois and Morrisburg. Because honestly, if I'm gonna, before anyone jumps and saying people don't like to drive, if I'm a gardener sitting there putting my stuff in a box and stuff like that, it seems counterproductive to take that little box all the way to Matilda to maybe exchange, or I don't know. It just, I think it's a good start, but I just wondering if there's the reasoning behind it, Austin, if you will, because it seems a little bit more complicated than just having getting rid of some hostas.
Go ahead, Austin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just to your point, Deputy Mayor Gardner, this was just to get the project up and running and initiate this type of event in the community. Obviously, once we see how May 10th goes, then or May 14th, sorry, we'll be able to judge and introduce possibly having more events in all the villages and potentially all on the same day as well in the future.
My concern, though, is if you start off with it in Matilda and there's no uptick, are you going to then do another one? Like, say it flops, not saying that's going to happen, but just say it flops. Are you then still going to be willing to try something like this in the thing? Because when I look at this, gardening it can be quite expensive. I know myself when I go to a garden center, it's a couple $100, a couple of times. So, you know, for this stuff, I want people to be able to walk and, you know, if they go with their kids and they're able to exchange plants and stuff. I'm just worried, you know, when I owned a property in the country, I didn't divide my stuff because I had land where I could just plant it other places versus in town where you can have a smaller garden, or if you're downsizing your garden, if you're a senior citizen or whatever, and you're getting rid of the plant. It's a very there's just different gardening and landscaping country versus more villagey. So I'm concerned because I think it's a really good idea that I'd like to see legs, and I don't want it to flop.
Yeah, absolutely. And through you, Mr. Mayor, we will be doing a pre-registration for this event. So depending on the numbers we have, then maybe we can make any adjustments needed and offer it in other villages within the community and see if it's a better uptake at that point.
See, that to me, with my box of hostas, even the fact I have to pre-register, like it just seems super heavy weighted down. And then I see you're going to have the nurseries come in and give information, and the local nurseries, that's their busiest time. So for them to get staff to go to a site where they can't sell, like I'm assuming the nurseries won't be able to sell anything.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there won't be any money exchange at this event. So they're just...
Yeah, so you're going to get the nurseries in peak gardening season to leave where they're selling their plants and go somewhere where they can't sell anything. Just it seems, and I apologize, Austin. I'm not trying to micromanage. I think this has value, and I'd like to see it. I remember Upper Canada Village used to do like a heritage exchange of plants and stuff like that, and it was very successful. There was money exchanged at that event, but still there was just a nice community feel to it, and I just feel like this one, I hope it's successful, but I'm hoping that it's rejigged if it's not. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Anything further, Austin?
No, sir.
Okay. Any comments from council?
I see country people don't garden.
We grow big gardens
Exactly.
with tractors.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so you've heard Deputy Mayor's concerns, Austin. I think, you know, personally, I don't have, it's not my cup of tea, so I can't say a lot, but I think the idea is good. The old horticultural clubs used to do it all the time, but they're long gone because too many members passed on. But I mean, I'd be willing to let it go, but you've heard some concerns and see if you could, you know, the villages make more sense. Maybe you'll find out in a hurry. Just put some pokers out there and see if you get some uptake, and then go from there. It's still early, so, you know, you can always change things around based on what you're feeling from our residents. Just a thought. Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay. Then it's next Air Quality Waterfront Advisory Committee minutes. I have to go find them again. Oh, there they are. They weren't too far away. They were next report down. Okay, so assuming that council has read the minutes, there's two things in here that concern me, and I had the clerk attach my comments because I did not go to that meeting that night, but I thought I'd give the committee direction on some of their agenda concerns. The chair asked for an explanation on the reimbursement of the costs. I think I told them council's decision on it and why. However, he's still looking for some money in this due to what he claims is a miscommunication error. I still think some of the principles of what he did were wrong, and he continued on. So I'd like to know what council thinks of paying what he considers for plaques that we're gonna throw out, because they didn't fit in the hole. Like, I'm challenged with it, I'll just say that.
I mean, the last,
And it's not personal to anyone involved, but if the procurement policy and rules weren't followed, then I don't know how we're supposed to pay for it. It's the way municipalities are run. It's, you know, it just is what it is. So I'm still comfortable with no reimbursement.
Okay, before I go on, Austin, you have any comments on that? You were at the meeting and you're basically named in this.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the communication error, there was an email that was attempted to be sent with multiple attachments. It ultimately didn't go through, I would assume due to the amount of attachments that were in the email. Once I spoke to the chair and we were able to recognize that, then we were able to alter the email so all the files came through, and within a few days of that email going through, the purchase was completed for the plaques to go on the benches.
Okay, now what about the ones he claimed he ordered? Did he literally order them on his own and then they didn't fit in?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the plaques were ordered as per the committee's request, and then it was brought to my attention that the supplier was contacted after we ordered the plaques, and the purchase was updated or altered, which resulted in an additional cost.
Did Mr. Ross do that on his own?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So, so there's a request in these minutes, the pay expenses, yes or no?
No.
Councilor Lewis?
Well, I think if Mr. Ross made the changes without going to the committee, no.
He
I'm
led
sorry,
a
I
lot of
can't change my mind.
that project on his own, and that's why he got in trouble. And you know, there's ways of doing things and ways of doing things that we ask our committees, and it's not just Iroquois. I'm not picking on John specifically because it's just the way he did it, and that's the challenge. I think we had that challenge at the last council meeting, and I don't see any different in this.
I didn't get into it, but at our Morrisburg Waterfront Committee, we got an update on the butterfly bench, because that family that is currently grieving, like actively grieving a recent loss, they've had to wait because they're following the rules. So I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so council's saying if he resubmits his list, it's not going to make any difference. He's still not paying, okay? Then the other one was that he spent some time on the Iroquois campground area, and he inferred that it was part of their terms of reference, and I really don't know where that is in his terms of reference, but anyway, it was moved and seconded that he have an investigation setting up a corporation for the purpose of leasing and managing the campground. Is that something that, I know we're having a campground discussion coming up Thursday, but should we be telling Mr. Ross that we may go down this road, are going down this road, or not going down this road?
I believe that the Iroquois Waterfront Committee, similar to the Morrisburg Waterfront Committee, should not be working against or to circumvent the decisions of this council. They're supposed to be acting as an advisory committee for the improvement of the waterfront. I read the minutes. There's a lot of blaming and back and forth in, you know, how the campground's been run or who's doing what or who's doing that. I don't believe it's the purpose, and I think that it's gotten to the point where when I look at they've done amazing work on that beach. Say it again, it's my daughter's favorite beach. We go there a lot. We spend a lot of time there. But there's still other attention, and if they're going to become a campground body, then I don't think that's within the scope of, like, I think the two are very separate. I really do. So I hate to see a committee that is used in such a way that it's just going at council, going at staff. That's not the purpose of these committees. And I think it's a waste of time. And I think that if there's an interest of individuals on that committee, then they remove themselves from the committee and that becomes a separate entity. And that's how I see it. It's two very different things.
Well, myself personally, I don't think the committee should be running the campsite. But on the other hand, until we have our meeting about the campsite, I would just tell them that we're not going down that road right now until we have our meeting to figure out what we're going to do. But I don't believe that Mr. Ross or anybody that sits on that committee should be running the campsite. I almost have to agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner on this one. If we do go down that road and if you want to run the campsite, then you have to step down from the committee.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, well, this is sort of where I was thinking, there was somewhat of a conflict of interest, in the waterfront and their terms of reference and the whole thing. I really don't think the committee should be involved in running a campground. I'm not so sure we should be involved in running a campground. But I mean, until this council or future council decides how they want to run it or what they want to do, this isn't anything, the waterfront committee shouldn't be dealing with this at all. Then if we would decide how we're going to proceed with the campground, what we want to do, how we want to run it, then we can go back to if we wanted to go down that road, then we can go back to the committee. And set up a subcommittee or something, but I don't think the Airport Waterfront Committee should be the one, or a corporation, setting up a corporation to run it. We got a lot of, I think we need to nip this in the bud and say, look, folks, this is our baby for right now. We'll put it to bed and we'll deal with it how we want to deal with it. And, don't waste your time, if you will, worrying about something that you haven't got jurisdiction over right now.
Okay. I will preface this by saying that the committee has come up with a lot of good ideas to get done this year within their jurisdiction of the waterfront and the park. And that's where they need to focus. They literally need to come up with an action plan for each one of what they want to do and how they're going to get there. And how they're going to get there in an efficient manner that it's done, in a timely basis. I didn't go to this meeting, but I suspect that, a lot of time was spent on these two items. And if it's a 2-hour meeting and you're spending an hour plus on these kind of items, then you really don't get nothing accomplished because then your focus is all gone. We haven't decided what we're going to do with the campground. I've always mused about what we're going to do, and even I've said that at budget time and before. However, for Mr. Ross to think about setting up a corporation, I certainly hope he hasn't gone and seen a lawyer yet, because that's going to cost somebody money, and it's not going to be us. And, in no disrespect to any of the campers and running a non-for-profit corporation, but the last non-for-profit corporation that was within our municipality was the Airqual Golf Club, Inc., and they no longer, well, they probably still exist on a charter, but they couldn't run it because you can't run, not-for-profit is basically a lost corporation. It always lands up that way because, a very good co-op has to be run by the tightest manager in the world to keep it running and focused that it still makes money in the end. My concern is, and I'm not going to predetermine what goes on Thursday, but I have concerns about some of the budgeting and how we get there, so we'll see on Thursday. But I did tell Mr. Ross that they didn't have to worry about it, but he continued on. So I think, if this is a motion that was carried, I think we as council have to say yes or no to it, and I'm hearing a lot of no on it. So Okay, so we'll see Thursday what we do. Technically, we can keep this in the back of our mind, but, you know, it's just, the Air Quality Committee needs to focus on getting what they want done. And as I said, no disrespect to any of those members. They work hard. They have an excellent, they've done good work in the past. The beach is, as Deputy Mayor says, one of the best in Eastern Ontario. But if you lose your focus, then you don't get anything done. All you do is spin a lot of wheels, and that's not good for anybody, to be honest.
I'd go even further and say it's an absolute privilege to be budgeted taxpayer money to have a vision, have projects that you're going to work on, and not have to worry about fundraising. So I would like to see these committees get back on the focus that, you know, there's other committees that have to do massive fundraising undertakings to do anything that they want to work on. And these two committees are very privileged in the sense that they have the support of the municipality. They present what they'd like to do. We support it. And then they get to do it without that worry of whatever. So to kind of squander that opportunity and go sidetracked and create, you know, I don't like the nastiness in the minutes. I don't like the drama associated with what's presented in the minutes. And I think that we're better than that. South Dundas is better than that, and you know, every time I see it, it ticks me off. So I think it's a privilege to be given some taxpayer money to work on projects and make things better, your community better, and I'd like to see it back to that. So it's my little piece of advice.
Okay, anything further? No. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. So, lost it. So tonight, we had an emergency management meeting today, and as all council knows, things are changing in Ontario and a lot of Canada. I asked staff to come back to give us an update on the vaccination policy, so go at her.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as the Mayor indicated, we did discuss this at our emergency management meeting today. We thought it was a good idea to bring this to Council, look for some direction, and also update Council on some of the new rules coming out tomorrow. So as of March 1st, there is some changes as far as proof of vaccination to enter an establishment is no longer required. Two things that were here tonight is one from our staff vaccination policy, but also in the staff vaccination policy, there is a component when it comes to their contractors that we put back in place in 2021. I'll speak to the staff vaccination policy, and then I'll hand it over to David and let him talk about the contractor piece. So I have reached out to our local CAOs to get understanding of where they are with their staff vaccination policy. We've also reached out to our Eastern Ontario Health Unit to look at their recommendation. Currently, right now, they are continuing to support workplace vaccinations. Personally, myself, I still support the intent of our vaccination policy. The pandemic is still here, it's still real. There's variants, there's so many different variables right now that can play into our numbers going up or our staff getting sick and of course passing it on to their loved ones and to other staff. So I'm looking tonight for council to continue with our vaccination policy from a staff perspective tonight until we get further guidance from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. That's the first part, and then I'll let David talk the second part.
So yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. And yeah, I know obviously it's always a fluid situation and things are rapidly changing, but I'm more speaking towards the contractor sides and a little bit of the work that came out of it for a staffing perspective in getting contractors in. I think the primary goal of the vaccination policy was to protect our employees and the people who work at South Dundas. There have been some contractors that have been unable to work for us, and I just wanted to get some of Council's opinion on continuing forward with the vaccine policy as it is for contractors. I'm starting to get more pushback as the regulations and the restrictions are starting to drop. It's difficult for staff to turn to a contractor and say, You can't come in the facility to do paid work, but as of March 1st, you can come in as a member of the public. The health unit guidance is starting to get to the point where we're reaching vaccine numbers and hospitalization numbers are equalizing. But I do still want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to protect our staff and everybody that works here. So I just wanted to send that around to council and see what your guys' opinion are on keeping the contractor and supplier restrictions in place.
What's your opinion?
I'd prefer to see it go. It's difficult for me to have a strong leg to stand on to, like I said, tell somebody that as a representative of a contractor that you can't come in our facility, but if you wait till 5 p.m. tonight, you're welcome to come into the Morrisburg Arena as a member of the public. Our staff are working the arena with more people in it than would be in it when that contractor's in it. But at the same time, we're putting a little bit more reliance on contractors, like it's written in the report. The health unit still requires businesses to have a safety plan. At the end of the day, we're relying on their safety plan if we go this route more than we're relying on our own policies. But I would prefer to, I think it's time to drop some regulations, but I know that it's a difficult area to go into, and the primary focus should still be on protecting staff.
Okay, so 2 issues. Vaccination policy for staff, continue on is the recommendation. Vaccination policy for outside contractors, sitting on the fence. No disrespect, but yeah, that's the answer I got.
Yeah, try not to balance too high.
Okay, so Councillor Mellon, your thoughts?
I agree with, maybe getting rid of it for the contractors. Where are we, I guess, at the end of the day, if we're still requiring our staff to be vaccinated, even though the province says it's no longer required, we're still...
So the requirements from the province is their mandatory vaccination to get into establishments have been removed. They have given us the caveat, though, is businesses can keep their own vaccination policies in place. That's where we're leaning towards right now, and based on the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, that's the direction we're taking right now.
Quick question.
No.
Yep.
You have any idea how many of your staff are triple vax?
We would have approximately 60%.
Okay, so about similar to the public.
Yep.
Which is a challenge because double doesn't work.
Right. So the issue right now with the vaccination policy in the province is the province recognized fully vaccination as 2 shots.
2. I understand that.
Yep.
I just
And
want to
that's-
make sure that
yep.
we are fully aware
Absolutely.
that, if you do the 40% are very, or just as exposed as before because Omicron doesn't care.
Correct.
And from what I hear, the triple helps, but that's an individual decision at this point.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and going down that road, I don't imagine the 40% will probably go out and continue be triple vaccinated. There's really no incentive there for them to do it unless we say, well, you gotta be, and that just muddles the whole thing. Being double vaccinated don't mean, nothing. And yet our staff can all go out, be around everybody else now that the restrictions are being lifted all the time. I would just leave the double vaccination which is probably almost 100% of our staff are double vaccinated. I mean, I wouldn't even worry about the triple vaccination because I don't think you're going to be able to, persuade people to get triple vaccinated when the rest of the province isn't requiring to be vaccinated. You don't have to show proof of vaccination unless we're going to force them, and I don't think we should be forcing somebody to be triple vaccinated now. So I would just say get rid of it for the contractors and leave the rest of it for, the staff. But even that, I think, is a weak. I can't see it lasting that much longer.
Councilor Lewis.
At this time, I would leave both the way they are. If you're a contractor and if you don't want to get vaccinated to work for me, then you don't need the money. That's the way I look at it. They all knew out there that you had to be double vaxxed, and they chose not to. And I think that's the way it should stay. If you don't get vaxxed, hey, so Dundas money's no good to you. So I would leave it. I would leave it the way it is. That's my feelings on it.
Okay, and Mayor?
So I would continue with the staff vaccination thing. As far as the contractors, the province has put us in a pickle, because you're absolutely right. You can't come in between the hours of blah, 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 but after a certain amount of time you can when there's more people and stuff like that. I think that we're definitely going to need a rollout plan, or whatever the opposite of a rollout plan is, to kind of pull back on this. I think that our community is fatigued, and I know for those of us that value the science behind vaccinations, I'm quite comfortable getting boosters. I've got my 3rd booster. I'll get my 4th if I need to, and I feel I've done what I'm comfortable with as far as getting protected. So with the contractor thing, I think it's very contradictory language. The only thing I wish they hadn't done was if they should still have the screening in place. Like, that's my issue is you take everything away, but if somebody comes and they're sick, that's the problem. You don't have that tool of screening, right? You don't have the self-screening. So that's where if they were going to open it wide open, but still advertise the screening thing, because what do we do if a contractor shows up and they're hacking all over the place? Are we able to distance ourselves? Are we able to refuse? Like, what can we do if that happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's, it seems like a good compromise. We could work on implementing a daily sign-in. If a contractor is unable to sign our COVID verification, like our waiver, then there could be a daily sign-in that uses the same tools as the active screening did for that contractor, that they have to.
That's my only concern is if you're not experiencing symptoms, the transmission rate is low, right? But if I am experiencing symptoms and I go cough in your face, then the chances of you getting whatever I'm coughing about is there. And I know there's so much debate in our community and there's so much division, but I had shared this story with the mayor. I have a cousin who is an elite athlete, was triple vax, did get COVID, and she can't train now because her breathing is not where it should be. So, we can debate night and day over whatever, but the reality is I don't want anyone that we take care of to be in that position. So if we can do some screening for the contractors, that I think would be appropriate. But I think the province has kind of pushed us by saying you can go to the arena. So we look like hypocrites a little bit. So I think that battle may not be worth the battle, because the staff you guys are going to be dealing with the kickback, and most people aren't, that's not their job, is to then have to deal with that. So definitely keep the staff vaccine in play, but the contractors, I honestly think the province has set us up where we don't really have much of a choice.
So you're saying no?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't say, okay. So, personally myself, I think, from a contractor point of view, I think I would have a hard time forcing them down that road. However, they would, if they're coming into our buildings, then they need to use N95 masks, and if they don't have them, you will give it to them. And that way, you do what we can to protect our staff, because that's what I care about, is our staff. We can go on with the staff one for now, but I think you need to continue having discussions with the CAOs and the health unit, because as Deputy Mayor has alluded to, we've had too many divisions in society now. We're done. The so-called Freedom Convoy has brought feelings to the top that not only deal with vaccinations, but deal with a whole bunch of stuff that we as society don't want to really have coming up anymore. And it seems that people get in their head a platform or a point of view, and they don't want to give it up. You can't talk to people that have that's it. And that's unfortunate, and you know, and we have political parties that think they're going to gain on that, and that's even worse. We need to get together. We worked when this thing whole started. Like, we locked this place solid down, and everybody got together, and we did it. And I know 2 years later we're tired of it, and Omicron came along, and we locked down. But in the end, it was I wouldn't call it our saving bug, but at least it was a bug that a vast majority of people can get and tolerate. Not all, though. And you know, a number of weeks ago, we were still losing 50, 60 people a day in Ontario. And it doesn't sound like a big number, but that's a Challenger jet, which holds about 50 to 60 people going down every day, and everybody being up in arms if that happened here. But see, it's perspective of how, you know, it's just old people dying. Well, my parents are old. I got to think about them when I'm out in the public. If I want to do things, I got to, you know, it's personal responsibility, it's society responsibility. I think our staff, all of them that are still here are vaccinated, so keeping the policy still okay. It's a challenge with contractors, and you know, we can't. I think if we put a safety plan in for them, we force our safety plan on them and say, do you want to work here? These are the rules. Yeah. If you don't want to work here, then we go to the Don Lewis, or Council Lewis, objective.
Okay.
If you don't want our money, then you go on. So, has anybody refused to work here? Ben refused to work here? Okay, so it's a tightrope. I'm going to have to leave it up to you to deal with it. But I think, you know, we're at a point now that, you know, if I suspect it's not months, it'll be weeks before the mask mandate's out, and then the kettle of fish will be opened up, and we'll see where we land up. Like, the wastewater numbers are going up, and nobody's mentioning about that. So if the theory is to keep the hospitals operating, we've done a good job. It's just that we all land up being in to decide what comfortable space we're in as individuals in society of dealing with it. If it's just a mild flu, then it's not the end of the world. But I know if my father gets it, and he's had pneumonia several times, I suspect he wasn't going to survive. And he's probably had 4 shots by now. But you got to keep those things in mind when we're out here. So direction to staff is no to the contractors, yes to staff. Put a safety plan in. You got to do a safety plan for us anyway, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing,
you have one.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The other thing I'll add too is staff all currently are wearing N95 masks. So in every department, anytime they get up from their desk, they're required to put an N95 mask on. So
Okay.
another layer of protection for sure.
Well, yeah, and we will get there.
Yep.
We will just get there. We just can't get there all at once.
Right.
And some provinces think, well, we can just drop them all at once. Well, why would you do something all at once? So you just kind of edge it out, and then, you know, as you get more comfortable, then you're good. Baby steps.
Right.
And people don't want to do baby steps anymore. Any further? Okay, thank you. Okay, Cenotaph update. Councilor Millen.
Oh, yeah, just a quick update, I guess, if you will, Mayor Bybels. I got an email today saying that the Iroquois Cenotaph project has addressed MP Eric Duncan. I think Shannon was included in the correspondence. They were successful through Veterans Affairs in $25,000 fundraising, that approval for that grant money, so that was a good thing. And there was some presentations on last Friday on some donations from the Lions and the Masons, I think it was. So the fundraising has continued, and there's still a few more that are out there. Can't speak to them right now, but there's still lots of bricks out there, and Jim Locke is trying to encourage as many people to buy the donation bricks. So, but the 25,000 was got the notification today that it was approved for that project.
Okay, so where is the committee and staff, and how is everything kind of meshing together? Because is that working from your point of view?
So currently right now, the drive is on for donations. When they have the donations amount ready, we as staff then will assist as needed. The agreement for the $25,000, I believe, similar to the Matilda, will come here. It'll be passed by bylaw and executed here because the money actually comes physically to the municipality, and then we will disperse it as needed. So they'll save on the HST, similar as Matilda Hall and all that. We did provide the purchase of the bricks last year to keep the price down as well too as the municipality's contribution. So we'll continue to provide locates and everything that they need for the project.
Okay. Do you foresee getting this done by November 11th of 2022?
Well, we're hoping.
Okay,
You know,
I'm just asking
Yeah,
because,
it's-
you know, it's the end of February and, you
Yeah, I
know,
know,
2 months
and,
of 22 are gone.
Things
And it's a big project,
slowed
so,
down over the winter as far as fundraising, this here, one there, and then the Ross video, and the Lions, and and the Masons, and some of them are still on the books as hopefully coming through. And like I say, we're trying to push the brick, you know, in dedication or memory of, or just for yourself, or like they did back in Matilda, was quite successful. So hopefully the fundraising will continue, and there's a possibility of maybe doing something, a fundraiser in the spring or early summer, in conjunction with the Legion, you know, a supper or something. But there's still some preliminary things there going on. But hopefully some of the bigger ones are gonna, you know, help kickstart this again and get it going. But I couldn't say. I think maybe we're maybe a little over 50% right now, I think, or towards the budgeted amount. I shouldn't really say, because I haven't seen any numbers lately, just from the conversation with Mr. Duncan on Friday, and he didn't have firm numbers yet. He was just sort of estimating we're probably maybe 50, maybe a little better than 50% with this here contribution, if we got this on Friday.
okay. Well, I'm just asking because,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
people would be wondering, they're gonna ask us what's going on, so now we know. Good, thanks for the update. Taylor Road Bridge, pre-purchase, do you have a motion ready for it? Okay, you put that on the table and we'll affirm the decision, please.
Sure. Moved by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas provide authorization to staff to proceed with pre-purchase approval of the Taylor Road Bridge, with pricing to be reported at a future meeting of council for final approval.
Okay, so I have to say this. Here's the risk. I didn't want to ask Harold, but if we buy the bridge and the construction project's outpriced, how are we going to do it? Once we buy the bridge, this has got to be done, right? So that's your challenge. Whereas we did it together,
Yep.
it's one contract and it's done. So I didn't want to put Harold on the spot on that, but that's one of the risks we would take. I like Harold's idea. Counties do it all the time, but we are committed to doing the bridge once it's sitting wherever it sits. So just a thought. I hate to throw that monkey wrench in there, but there's nothing worse than having a $350,000 bridge and somebody comes back and wants $2 million to install it, and it's a risk. I think, is it worth it? Harold thinks it is, and he's an expert, so I just want to make sure it's said. Go ahead, Councilor Lewis, you seem like you're ready to say.
But Harold said the savings
There
might
could be a saving.
be $20,000?
Yeah. But then it's in, then we got the bridge. If we don't get this bridge ordered, we might not get a bridge in, and that's the thing too. That's our catch, there's a lot of catch-22s here. I want to order it so I can get this bridge done. I'm willing to do it. Honestly, I'm willing, but I'm just throwing it out there. I don't want, if something goes bad, where we have to be prepared to do some hand scratching.
Well, we might as well all look bad together.
Okay, Councilman Mellon, your thoughts?
I'm good with, you're absolutely right, that is a risk you're gonna take, you know, I guess we'll put the bridge on Kijiji, I don't know. But,
Well, worst comes to worst, we'll find some people, we'll get a bunch of farmers together, we'll get that bridge installed. May not look very pretty, but it'll be done.
Yeah, no, there's risk involved, but I think you're absolutely right. If you don't get the bridge pre-ordered, it may not, you know, we may not get it, and things are gonna ramp up here pretty soon, I'm guessing, in construction.
Well, they're
and-
probably already ramped up,
Yeah,
so.
so,
Okay, I just want to throw
roll
on
the
the
dice, let her
table.
go.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
No more comments, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. I had to say it, it came to my head, so I think, geez. And the counties do it with culverts, so big box concrete culverts. Counties actually buys all the culverts and then finds a contractor to install them. So, and they've had success with it, it saves them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, so it's worthwhile. And Harold works with the counties a lot, so. No notices of motion tonight, Madam Clerk? Okay, ratification bylaw, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2022-27, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. So before I ask the clerk to read the adjournment motion, I'd like to thank council for their work tonight. I'd like to thank all staff, those here and those virtual, for your reports tonight. Much appreciated. And I'd also like to thank the audience for participating in our meeting. Madam Clerk.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Mellon, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair at 9:37 p.m.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you very much.